हेलो। हाँ, सौम्या मैम कर रही है, उनका वो आया था नोटिफिकेशन कि सौम्या। ओह सॉरी मैम, मेरा नंबर सेव नहीं था। हाय मैम, गुड मॉर्निंग। सर ठीक है मैम, ओके। हाँ मैम, क्योंकि यहाँ से भी अगर मैं देखूँ तो यहाँ पे स्टॉप रिकॉर्डिंग का ही आ रहा है, मतलब रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है ना। हाँ जी जी मैम, ओके मैम। हम्म।
I joined there, so I don't know. It's starting at 11, right? So I think I have joined. So just you can ask your guys to check and if anything's to be done. Okay. Okay.
Yes, good morning, sir.
Hi, good morning. Morning. You can check whether the setting is all right.
Yes, sir, it's all right. Good morning, everyone. We hope that you are doing great. The entire family of Cybercell Dolatram College welcomes you all on the day 2 of ENCRYPT'21. Before we begin with today's session, there are some instructions that needs to be followed. Kindly do not turn on your audios in between, as it can cause disturbance in the session. If possible, please turn on your cameras during the session. Do not present your screen in order to avoid any disturbance. Drop your queries in the chat box. We shall have them towards the end of the session. Thank you.
We are meant to keep focused on new life, for new beginnings, for new experiences, and to use our abilities to move beyond all those things that may hamper our growth and stops us from taking new initiatives. Create stories that inspire mankind to rest their own. With the core of motivation, I, Diksha Jain, with my co-host Anjali Gaur, on behalf of the entire family of Cybercell Dolatram College, feels delighted to offer a gracious welcome to our guests, teachers, and all the attendees in today's Speaker Summit. To improve the golden moment of opportunity and catch the good that is in our reach is the great art of life. We at Cybercell Dolatram College strongly believes in providing the netizens an environment where they can learn, witness, and create a safer and advanced cyber world. The times of COVID have taught us how unpredictable life can be and how many hidden dimensions does it have. The same lies with the scope of opportunities the cyber world can offer its users. And now I would like to invite the President of the Cyber Cell, Chelsea Kukureja, to address the meet.
Greetings to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome our speaker for today, Mr. Tamil, Cybercell team, our teachers, and all the audience who either joined here or who have joined through YouTube. I am thrilled beyond measure seeing the speaker summit flagging off in such an energy, radiating manner, something we really need in these tough times. It's an honor for all of us to have Mr. Tamil here amongst us. We are very thankful to you, sir, for accepting our invitation. With this, I now hand the floor to you. We are eagerly waiting to hear from you.
Thank you. I think I am expected or I am supposed to speak on digitalization in banking, right? That's the thing. So what I'm planning to do is I'm not going to throw all kind of jargons like robotics and OTT and AI and confuse you. So I, to the extent my understanding, which is a pretty limited one, I'll try to explain to you how the digital banking space is unfolding in India and globally, of course. And what are the challenges, what are the advantages, what it means for you and me as customer, and what it means for the providers. If you have any questions, etc., I'll get distracted clicking at the chat box. So one of you who has been anchoring, feel free. So let me speak about half an hour odd, and maybe 35, if little more than that, if the flows carries, and then last 5-7 minutes, if you wish, you can have a few questions. Is that okay?
Sure,
okay,
sir.
so let me start with a story, and which is a real life story. Cut back to, and it's actually one of my books dealt with this. Cut back to September 2014. Aditya Puri, then MD and CEO of HDFC Bank, was flown to Silicon Valley by invitation of the MasterCard Payments and Technology. You know what is MasterCard. And Aditya Puri, why did he go? Because he was a sort of on the advisory committee of the APEC of MasterCard. And that was the time in 2014, globally, the slogan where Silicon Valley will teach the bank and bank branches. Banks will not remain in the current format. And of course, it was reverberating with the speech which sometime in 1994, 20 years back, Microsoft boss Bill Gates said that banking would be required, but we may not. So that was the time banking fraternity and the banks as an institution were feeling threatened. Puri made that. Now, what he saw in Silicon Valley is this. I tell you one jargon, OTT, over the top. Now, the entire digitalization was happening. The model was over the top, meaning you are riding someone. So all the fintechs were riding the banks. And he found that it's not exactly competition, it's collaboration what is happening, which means the bankers are offering their infrastructure and fintechs are using that and reaching out to more and more customers. And there are 4 things happening. I'm talking about 5, 6 years, 7 years back, 2014. 4 things were happening. Now there's more. One is that loan.com. in India also we are finding a lot of NBFCs, etc., etc. A lot of frauds are happening. RBI has recently said that if you are doing this, if you are a loan.com company, you must say who are you representing. By itself, you cannot do that. So loan.com, again, it needs to be attached to an NBFC or a bank because it does not have a license to give loan. It's only a front face, that OTT riding it. Then the payments, which is Alipay and Apple Pay, and now we are all seeing that Google Pay and all kind of things. We are saying that. Third is the wealth advisor, and fourth is the wallet, pure play wallet. These are the four broad spectrum of the digital transactions in the financial sector space I'm talking about when this Puri's visit made. So Puri came back and Puri said, let's disrupt ourselves. He held a meeting after this 18 hours flight. He did not go home. He came to his office. He called all his big guys, 20 odd people. He made a presentation to them and he said, look, people, now the choice is there. At that time, the bank was 20-year-old. He said, look, the choice is whether we allow ourselves to be disrupted by others or we disrupt ourselves. So let's disrupt ourselves. This is the way to stay relevant. So that's 2014. Now move 1 year ahead, 2015 August. Nandan Nilekani. Nandan Nilekani does not need any introduction. One of the promoters of Infosys and the creator of Aadhaar. That Nandan Nilekani spoke about the same disruption 1 year later in a Bangalore hotel in August 2015. And what he said is this: if 2009 was a WhatsApp moment for telecom, 2015 is a WhatsApp moment for Indian banking. I'm just quoting him. You can go to internet and find. He exactly said that what we are staring at is a WhatsApp moment for Indian banking, which the telecom companies saw in 2009. And now by that time, what has happened? 2015, as you know, our new government came in place. The Modi-led, BJP-led government in 2014. And then we got into that JAM Trinity, JAM. One is Jan Dhan Yojana, PMJDY. Now I think it's a 33, 34 odd crore new deposits, new bank accounts open for financial inclusion. Then A stands for Aadhaar and M stands for mobile. So the JAM Trinity, the entire Indian digitalization is actually, riding on this, or the three prongs of this in the JAM Trinity. And at the same time, 2015, a lot of other things happened. Aadhaar already in place, as I said. The smartphones, there are exponential, numbers growing the smartphone using the Android phone everywhere because it's become very cheap, so on and so forth. And also, the RBI started giving new bank licenses. And for the first time, going beyond the typical universal banking license, it also gave two types of new licenses. If you remember, one is small finance banks, about 10 licenses are given, and other is payments bank, which is exclusively for payment. So roughly 2015, the Nandan Nilekani projection of WhatsApp movement for bank, it has been unfolding since then. The past 5-7 years. Aditya Puri was just one event I told you. That's a bank-specific event, and because HDFC Bank is ahead of others in terms of digitalization. But overall, the industry, 2015 it started, and then it got much booster. Two phases. One is 2016 November. And you know the digital in this we embraced demonetization. Now whether demonetization good, bad, ugly, that's debate is still on. But demonetization pushed this in a very, very big way. But then what happened? Again, it was halting, and then COVID 2020 came, 2020 February and March, and as we speak, we are facing the cruelest April in India in probably in the past 1 century, the second wave of COVID. But as I said, what happened, what started in 2015 with Jam Trinity, got the first booster dose by demonetization, and then it is in full swing now because of COVID. So what fintech is doing to banks now, which is you to you, I would say that doing to the TV channels. That's what is happening. That's what is happening now. As I said, I'm not getting into all these technicalities of AI and robotics and all. But what is changing? What is changing? What is digital banking? Now, digital banking is as opposed to the branch banking. Now, if you remember, historically, all banks used to, have the branch opening was a big event. Mr. X or Mr. Y, important people will have a branch opening, and the bank will say that this is my 100 branch, this is my 200 branch, this is my 300 branch, this is my 1000 branch, so on and so forth. India has probably 140,000 odd branches. So one is this branches and ATMs. These are the branch banking. And then opposed to that, you have essentially using your mobile and computer. This is the digitalization as opposed to banking. Now, online banking, which is from our computer, be it laptop or be it even through mobile now or desktop, etc. It started in US actually. If those who are interested, you go back to the US banking history in 1994. 1994, when we got the first set of new banks in India, this ICICI, HDFC, and Axis, etc. At that time, US got a bank called Stanford Federal Credit Union. Stanford, as the first online bank in US, which was, and now of course 80% of the US banking is online. And we are of course, we are embracing it not for fancy thing, not for primary driver in India, and because it got pushed from the government as well as Reserve Bank of India, is basically financial inclusion, taking bank to the unbanked, because all our banks are primarily focused into metros and urban areas, and they can reluctantly go to the semi-urban areas, but they are very, very wary of going to the rural areas for multiple reasons, because of trade unions in the public sector banks and because of so many other things and all. But technology now is cutting across all the barriers. That's what's happening. Now, at the end of the day, what is changing? I'm getting into more details later, but what is changing is as a result of this digitalization and robotics and artificial intelligence, cloud is a banking. We can say that bank is in my pocket, because mobile is in my pocket and I'm going my banking mobile. What is changing? Changing is bank is becoming a marketplace. When I started bank reporting, which is 24, 25 years back, we used to say that all banks are looking for becoming a life cycle bank. Now, what does it mean, a life cycle bank? Life cycle bank meaning a bank would try to catch you at every stage of your life. Meaning, when you are a student, a bank will give you a student loan, whatever education loan. Then, if you are going, if you are getting married, etc., going on a honeymoon, bank will give you a personal loan. Then you are settling down, bank will give you a first car loan. Then you are planning to buy a house, bank will give you a mortgage, the housing loan. And then as you grow, bank will give you loan for your children's education, so on and so forth. So from at a very early age, teenage to the time you become a senior citizen, and even till the time you are around, apart from keeping your money and giving you interest on your deposits, etc., banks also give you, handhold you throughout your life, meeting all your needs. Of course, they do sell you mutual fund and insurance, so on and so forth. But the fact is, every stage of your life, the bank is with you. That's called a life cycle bank. Now, what has happened since 2015 and what Nandan Nilekani said, WhatsApp movement and all, bank has become from life cycle, has become a lifestyle bank. It's they are not focusing on life cycle anymore. They are focusing on your lifestyle. What does it mean? Banks have become a marketplace. Banks is a sort of, you can see in the financial sectors, Netflix or Alibaba. What does it mean? It does everything for you. If you go to HDFC site, you want to book a flight ticket, you don't need to go to one of those intermediaries. I would not like to name them because I'm not propagating for any particular entity or saying this entity is not important. But all those intermediaries you will get from where you buy the flight tickets. You don't need. You go to that particular bank site and you will get all the options of the flight ticket. Now, what does this? Why should the bank offer you this? The bank should offer you this because you will use that gateway of the banks to make that payment. So that's what. And bank also gets to know that what are you doing? When are you booking hotel? When are you going on a holiday? When are you going catching a flight going to US or UK? When are you buying things from Amazon? So on and so forth. And banks use that data. As you know that one of if you see that the entire digitalization is banking, you divide it into two parts. One is the structural changes, which makes us more easy. We don't need to waste time. We don't need to catch a bus or a taxi or auto or drive down our own car. We don't need to wait at a branch, so on and so forth. We can do it on our own. Transaction cost is much less, etc. These are all the structural things which helps us, which helps the bankers. But the other part is changing is this. In the process, banks and other intermediaries also get hold of all the data, what you do. Like for instance, if you go to this particular site, you not only can book hotel or air tickets. Suppose you want to have a wedding in Goa and you want to have some kind of music band, you can book there. Or you want to buy Papad from Jalandhar, the famous Papad one particular company do, you can buy there. It's an Amazon. It's a Netflix of banking. What you don't get as of now in India, you can't order wine because the Bank of India does not allow that. So alcohol you don't get, but other thing, everything you get. So you get this sitting at home. You don't need to go through this. And they pop up all kind of the cheapest and the best things. So you choose, you don't need to go there. Banks get because you are passing through the bank's gateway. So the bank get that little bit of commission, etc., etc. And more importantly, banks are keeping a tab on you, what you spend, what your lifestyle, and that data bank uses to other things to cross-sell you, to sell you other stuff, whether it's a financial product or non-financial products. So these are the advantages. It's cheap, it's access, it's faster timing. For banks also cost saving, for you also cost saving, and of course all the other part of the thing. And more importantly, bank can have access of all data, and then accordingly customize the products that suits you and me. Which is why I'm saying the one way of looking at it is this: Indian banks which were focusing on being life cycle bank. Now all of them, including State Bank of India, they are the forefronts with the State Bank of India or HDFC Bank and Axis Bank and Kotak Bank and ICICI Bank. I can think of all them offhand. Public sector banks are not that smart as yet. Some of the other public sector banks, but these are the 5-6 banks are doing that. And that's it. Now, what are the pitfalls? The pitfalls are two. One is downtime. Sometimes you will find that because of XY reason, my server is not working between this and this, 4 hours, 6 hours, etc., etc. That downtime is the thing, but it's a minor pitfall. But other thing is the security issue. Security, that's the cyber crime, and that's the problem. Now, always the hackers are always ahead of you. So that's the I'm not an authority or expert to explain to you how the cyber crime happens. I can only pick up from some internet site and tell you. I don't want to waste your time. You can check that. But that's a pitfall. Apart from the downtime, etc., the security and fraud that can actually. I myself has become because I'm a so-called expert and I try banking. But last year, I myself became a fraud of an app, 1,47,000 rupees. In a few minutes, it just got out of my account. So you need to be careful about that. Now, let's talk about global scenario before we get into open up things in a few minutes. Now, India, there is no digital only bank. If you see this week, I think 3 or 4 days back, Reserve Bank of India said that there are 4 each license seekers for both universal bank and small finance bank. But RBI till now is not talking about a digital bank, digital only bank. But does that mean there is no digital bank? No, there are digital banks globally. For instance, UK had its Starling Bank in 2016. And before that, that's a digital bank, which gives both mobile and internet. But before that, the first digital bank, UK, and probably first in the world, in 2013 had Atom Bank, ATOM, which is only on mobile app, not on internet, only on mobile app. That's the first. Now in China, you had WeBank in 2014. WeBank, it's called WeBank. It's the first only digital bank. India does not have it. And after that it has MyBank. And in fact, China is the biggest in the digitalization. China's about 30% odd of all over banking, digital banking of the globe happens in China. You know what happens in Ant Bank, which is a part of Alibaba, which is now which is located in Hong Kong, not in China. So China roughly account for little less than 1/3 of total digital banking globally, about 30%. And US is 1/4 of digital banking, which is 7.5%. So China is now. US has many. It's called one of them is Moven Bank. One of them is called Simple Bank, Go Bank, Money Lion, Bank Mobile, Chime, CHIME. There are half a dozen banks which are very, very active doing that, and all 6 of them. And all these banks are called, they are called either Neo Bank or you call them Challengers, etc. And my understanding, if I am correct, the Monetary Authority of Singapore, MAS, had given 21 licenses this year, 2020, 21 licenses for only digital. Now, India, as I said, does not have any plan as of now for pure play digital bank. One of the license seekers is the ex-promoter of Flipkart, Sachin Bansal. His non-banking finance entity called Chaitanya, he has sought a license of universal banking. He is a very digital and savvy person, etc. But has he sought any digital banking license? No, because India does not have the provision for digital bank as of now. Will it do it later? We don't know. But what is happening in India in the digital space and in the payment space is something which none of the other geographies can compete. And this is, I'm telling you, not because I'm Indian or I'm nationalist or I'm creating a hype, but this is actually, if you ask anybody, even Bill Gates, who said in 1994 that we will need banks but may not need bankers. He's saying that India is the most happening place. If you see the Reserve Bank of India, RTGS and NEFT, through which you and me send money, is now 24/7 by 365. And what are the other things? I'm not getting into all this Paytm and Google Pay and all kind of, these are all apps and happening and all. But I want to focus 3-4 things which will give you a sense what is happening in India in digital space. When I'm talking about digital space, meaning not necessarily digital banking, it's the digital financial space. And primarily, if you look at this, all are this happening in the payment space. Of course, digitalization is making faster. Your KYC is done over the phone. Your credit appraisal is done through data analytics, so on and so forth. But most importantly, it's happening in the payment space, and which the benefit getting you and me in urban area, and at the same time, more than you and me, getting our people in the hinterland. That's also expanding financial inclusion. So four things happened in India in the past few years, which are very critical in the digital world. One is the United Payment Interface, UPI. Now, what is UPI? It's a consumer to merchant, connectivity. It's just through a mobile app. So you will go to anywhere. You go to Gorakhpur, you go to Orissa, some Kirana stores or some hair cutting salon and all. People are using UPI. Billions of this thing UPI. So all the Paytms and all were actually going big. They are all being threatened, and UPI has overtaken each or everybody. It's the peer-to-peer, consumer to merchant transaction through mobile app. This is something unprecedented, and it is beyond India. UPI has gone to other parts of the world also, many of the Southeast Asian countries and all. So point number one, I'm not getting into the specific of other thing, but broadly, what India, the digital landscape or the field was, one is UPI. Second is Bharat QR. You know what is Bharat QR? Bharat QR is only, this is a code. You scan the code and transfer money. So anywhere you carry it to your Kirana stores, etc., and then you just scan it. You just your mobile, your identity will not be there. Your mobile number is not required. Just code you scan. The money is there, and the money get transferred. It's something. It's a millions transactions are happening. So, and these are all our homemade stuff, not China made, not US made, not UK made. These are all done by our own government. So, and these are changing the way things are happening. One is UPI, second is Bharat Code, third is Bharat Bill Pay. It happened in 2018. Now, Bharat Bill Pay, school fees, all kind of utilities like your mobile phone payment or your electricity payment, your insurance premium, everything can be done through Bharat Bill Pay. It started in 2018. And fourth thing is RuPay. RuPay started much early. RuPay is a credit card, local credit card, meaning it's not a card. It's the agency which runs it, like Visa and Master. And all the banks now, particularly in the rural India, they are getting, again, RuPay is millions and millions of RuPay cards are now being used, and that has forced Visa and Master to cut their commissions, so on and so forth. I know that because I was attached to one bank, now I am attached to another bank in the advisory capacity, and these are all new banks being created, and I know how they are negotiating with Visa and Masters and cut their cost, because Visa and Master sees RuPay is a huge competition. So these are the four things. Apart from what you hear, what you see, I would not like to name and advertise the various things which you get to see everywhere on TV channels, all these mobile apps and all what is happening and all. But the four things that has changed India's landscape and making India, or has made India the most happening in the digital banking space are UPI 1, Bharat Code, Bharat QR 2, Bharat Bill Payment System 3, and RuPay Card 4. And of course, RBI doing NEFT and RTGS 24/7. Last few minutes, and then I'm open to think. I've already spoken, I think, 25 minutes, 5 more minutes and all. Now, so all these things, the question would come for us that what is beyond? Question number one is this: do we need branches and ATMs? Do we need banking in this format? Or do we go only the Atom way or the Alipay way or the Ant way, where from my study or from your institute library you can do banking? We don't need bank branches. We don't need. Of course, we need bankers at the backyard, but no bank branches, no ATM. Is that correct? Is it going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years? And second question, of course, we would have this: when will RBI be ready to give a digital only bank? Now, When will RBI be ready to, let's take this question first. When will RBI be ready to digitalize? I'm not privy to any information. But what we see, Reserve Bank of India is opening up on the payment space pretty fast. If you see in maybe 10 years back, in 2010-8, the very minimum thing one can transfer through mobile banking, it started with some 4,000, they made it 8,000, then they made it 10,000. Very, very slowly they are doing. And now they are opening much faster RTGS and NEFT 24/7. Retail participation in bond selling, etc., etc. But RBI may take a while, not as fast as we are expecting, because RBI will probably have the question that why do you need a pure pay digital bank? Because every bank has a digital bank within itself. I'm not talking about Bank of Maharashtra, or Central Bank, or Indian Overseas Bank, or UCO Bank. They are the laggards. They are struggling to remain as where they are. But if you talk about HDFC, if you talk about Axis, if you talk about Kotak, if you talk about ICICI, even if you talk about State Bank of India, if you say there's no vertical, there is nothing called, they call it, but I know, there is a bank within a bank. There's a digital bank within each bank. So it meant for the people who want to go there, the pensioners who want to spend some time on not the COVID social distancing time, but otherwise they want to meet their friends, they want to spend some time. So they crowd the bank branch, and all the even some of the other people who are not exactly technology literate, they know they need bank branches, they need ATMs, so on and so forth. At the same time, the urban people, you and me, the literate people, the tech-savvy people, they are using the digitalization. So in that sense, every bank has a digital bank, or rather, many of the modern banks has a digital bank within itself. So we don't probably need an exclusive digital bank. Maybe as an experiment, a few years down the line, RBI might give licenses if it's convinced that the entity is can ensure reasonable security in terms of cybercrime, etc., etc. That will be a big factor to decide on. Other big factor will be RBI will say that why do you need only digital bank? Because we have physical bank which have within itself is a digital bank. And the second part is more critical from the bank's point of view. Banking is a business where the main capital is trust. You can have a restaurant where you can have good food and people will sell. You have a kirana store, you get it less than MRP, it will sell. You have a steel factory, you make good steel, it will sell. You cement factory, everything else. But banking is one part where there's nothing called inferior or superior qualities. The money is the same. 100 rupees for every bank, for you, for me. So then what differentiates one bank from another, which is how much trust a bank commands. Say loan I can take from any bank because the risk is banks. I may run away, I may not be able to pay back the loan. But when I keep my money, I need to trust the bank that this bank will not fail. And this trust cannot be created through digitalization. In the West, it's a slightly different thing because West, there is no banking is, the way the banking is done is very different. Every time you go to an ATM and withdraw money, you pay some money, some fees, etc., etc. So there's nothing come free in West. So there the relationship between a bank and a customer is very different. Here the relationship is very different. And banking is all about the trust. Which is why, as you know, if you are seeking for a license of spectrum, or if you are seeking for a license of coal mines, it's all given to the highest bidder. It will all put on action. But for banking, no, it's 500 crore capital for everybody. But if you and me, both of are applying, who is more trustworthy? Who is more fit and proper? So this trust this trust is very difficult to create online. This trust is something feel and touch. So for that, you need to have bank branches, you need to have ATMs, I need to go, I need to see your branding, I need to see your board, I need to see you, I need to feel you. It's like buying things from a sabji market. You know, you see whether the potato and onions and tomatoes are good or rotten. And when you go to some other shop through them online, it may come, but you will find some of the stuff are not as good. So you prefer to buy, unless you are this COVID kind of situation, you and me would prefer to buy certain things only after feeling and touching. So banking is like that, the trust business. Now, whether online can build the trust, that's the question. As of now, no. Second is, well, all this, Google and Google Pay and Phone Pay, etc., they are there for the payment, ensuring the payment system, and of course, in the process, getting the data, accumulating data, and stalking you or trying to sell other things to you. Fine, but you ask them to become a bank, many of them will not be willing to become a bank, because banks is a regulated business. The moment you are becoming a bank, you are taking deposits and you are giving loan, there are hajaru regulations. So not too many players would be like to be, it's a very claustrophobic, it's the most regulated business. So from the player's point of view, those who are now doing only in the payment space, would they like to become a bank? You ask them, not too many of them would like to become a bank because of the regulations, and regulations is claustrophobic. There's a huge cost of regulation. Cost, when I say cost, meaning not the physical cost, but overall meaning regulation. And second part, as I said, is the trust. So now I come to the last 1 minute or 2 minutes, or rather 1 minute. I started with an anecdote, I end with an anecdote. So how do you see 1994, Bill Gates said, we will definitely need bankers, but may not need banks. It's now 25-year plus. What is the scenario now? And we are now have Google Pay and Phone Pay and WhatsApp money transfer, so on and so forth. So then do we see banks are dying? Probably not. Probably we would, in Indian context, we will see a hybrid model for multiple reasons. As I said, because trust, people need to see you, feel you, then only they can keep money with you. They can take money from you, but they will not keep money with you unless you trust them. The trust factor, the regulations factors. And other part, I come back to the first part, the digital, all these fintechs, they are riding on a bank network. They don't have their own customer base. Unlike, say, Google or Amazon, they have their customer base. That's a separate story. But otherwise, like PhonePe or XYZ, they don't have their customer base. So they ride banks. So it's a choice of banks, whether if I'm a bank, I allow you to ride on me, or I compete with you, or I cohabit with you. I end with an anecdote. You know, you have a lovely kitchen and you are a great chef. I ask you to make chicken curry or if the vegetarians are there, for them some paneer burji. Now, I've given you a great kitchen. I've given you good temperature, weighing machine, all kind of masala, etc., etc. And you are a great chef, Michelin chef. But still, you will not be able to make chicken curry or paneer burji unless you have the chicken and paneer. Now, this chicken and paneer are the customers. Chicken and paneer are the customers. So you can have a great kitchen, but still you can't. So similarly, you can have a technology, etc., but you don't have the customers. Banks have the customers. So you need to cohabit with banks. Now, how smart is the bank? It depends. Some banks say, no, I don't need you. I disrupt myself and I give you some odd job and come with me and hello. And some banks said, no, you come and ride on me and some banks are doing, and some banks are doing nothing, and they are becoming irrelevant. I will not name the banks. You know who we are mentioning, which is why government is talking about privatization of at least to start with two of them. So that's the story of globe, and that's the story of India. Digitalization is here to stay. Digitalization has innumerable benefits. Digitalization has some of the drawbacks also, but that's true for everywhere. As far as digital banking is concerned, China, US, UK is far ahead of us. But when it comes to digitalization in the payment space, India is the most happening place across the globe. Thank you for listening to me. I don't know whether I made any sense. I spoke extempore. Just like that, no PowerPoint presentation, nothing. I like this way, and I'm happy if you like it. If you don't like it, also be upfront. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for such an insightful session. It was indeed a great experience hearing from you. Now, participants are requested to drop their queries in the chat box. Before moving towards the query session, I would like to invite our convener, ma'am, Ms. Sushma Arora, our co-convener, Ms. Sanya ma'am, our president, Ms. Chelsea Kukreja, and our co-president, Namita Gupta, to offer a virtual bouquet to our guest.
Thank you. Thank you. Stay safe.
Thank you so much, sir. It's a great honor to have you amongst us. Please accept this virtual bouquet as a token of respect and gratitude.
Thank you.
If anyone has any question, kindly drop their queries in the chat box.
Let it be. I think we have just stuck to our time, right? If there's no question, don't force them to ask it. Question as long as if it's. I think we just stuck to our time. So if you say there's no question, we can say goodbye, and I wish you all the very best. You're there, and it's a tough time. Stay safe, all of you.
Surely, sir. On the behalf of the entire Cyber Cell, I would like to extend my gratitude towards our speaker for the day, Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our invitation and gracing the occasion with your presence. You really helped us in getting various deep insights about today's topic. You are a true source of inspiration. Listening from you, like always, inspires us to give our best and never stop learning. And thank you so much, sir, for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I would now request the participants to kindly be there in the meeting for further session.
The next speaker will be here in a moment.
Till then, let's take a glance over the activities and events organized by CyberCell. Coming together is a beginning.
Sir, if you're here, please turn on your video. Yeah, please begin. He's here.
Okay. Coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. CyberCell has surely shown this in practical by being one of the most eminent cells of the college in providing students the much needed cyber-related awareness and knowledge. And today also we have Mr. Kuldeep Singh sir as our speaker. He is an alumnus of Columbia University with a master's degree in computer science. He also has a management degree from Harvard University, an accomplished top technology leader and hacker, investor, entrepreneur currently working with Myntra. Mr. Singh has over a decade of vast and rich experience in product and program management at Microsoft, IBM, Cisco, and Amazon. A TEDx speaker, Mr. Singh has the proud privilege of being a keynote speaker to eminent gatherings at prestigious institutes such as IIT, CBI, IMA, etc. As a part-time teaching staff at Harvard, he has taught multiple graduate level courses across management, psychology, and computer science. His favorite courses have been in entrepreneurship, innovation, and strategy. He has also held innumerable information security training and certified hack workshops for individuals ranging from college students to Fortune 100 management executives. In addition to authoring the book Telling the Gmail Labs, at the age of 22, he has to his credit today several articles and over 30 research publications. His role in various international IEE and WASCT conferences includes being the chair and reviewer. Winner of the Top 50 Tech Leaders Award in California and elected thought leader by the Leadership and Management Institute, LMI, Singapore, he has also been a gold awardee with International Award for Young People. Besides listening to podcasts, he is an avid skier, loves horse riding, and also maintains an adventurist. But what he holds close to his heart is having been the youngest to scale the Hyundai leadership. Let's welcome our guest with a huge virtual round of applause. I would like to invite our convener, Ms. Sushma Arora, our co-convener, Ms. Sanya, our president, Chelsea Kukureja, and our co-president, Namita Gupta, to offer a virtual bouquet to our guest. Thank you so much, sir. It's a great honor to have you amongst us. Please accept this virtual bouquet as a token of respect and gratitude. Now, I would like to hand over the virtual prize to our speaker for the day, Mr. Kuldeep Singh, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Diksha. Really appreciate being here, and thank you so much for your kind words. I'm assuming that I'm audible.
Yes, sir. You're
Correct me if I'm
perfect.
okay. Perfect. Great stuff. So let me present my screen and we'll get started. And while I'm doing that, just confirming, I've got roughly about 20 minutes. That's correct, Diksha? Correct? Okay, wonderful. Let me know once you start seeing my screen.
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool. Thank you. Welcome, guys. I've picked up a topic where I would love to talk about a hacker's mindset. And since Disha mentioned that I've been a hacker, I will try to extrapolate some of my learnings that I've had as a hacker and turn that into life lessons, right? So how can we learn, gain some insights from a hacker's mindset and apply that into our daily lives, right? So that's the goal. If you can take away, I've tried to not keep it very technical. If you're interested in hacking and technicalities of it, I'm happy to connect offline. But because I was told that people are from all walks of their life and various departments, I've kept it to a broader and a high level hacking topics, right? Cool. So let's get started. Welcome, and just let's begin a countdown. 3, 2, 1. And just like that, you are hacked, right? And just to give you a little perspective in terms of, and again, I just want to keep it interactive as well, right? So, Disha, I don't have access to chat, but I will depend on you for some responses that will be coming in. It will be nice to keep it interactive. So let's do a warm-up exercise, right? Let's just take a guess on how many annual hack attacks do we see, right? Or if you want to talk in terms of months, days, what's the quantum that you expect that there's a hack attack every month, every day, whatever number comes to your mind. Let's see who's closest. Disha, keep me honest here with the chat responses.
Okay, so we have response saying every second, sir.
30 seconds. Who said that?
Every second. Every second.
Every second.
Every second.
Okay. Wow. That is
every minute.
huge. Every minute. Okay. Who said every second? Can we have the name, please?
Yeah, the name is Guria, sir.
Sorry?
Guria.
Guria. Okay, Guria. So the world is not as bad as you think as of yet, but you are the closest because a minute is 60 seconds, but we actually get roughly about a hack attack every 28 seconds, right? So with 2 seconds, you are the closer one. If you quantify, it's 1.5 million cyber attacks annually, and there are about 4,000 in a day, 170 in an hour, and if you boil it down to like number of seconds, roughly comes to 28 seconds, right? So since I started talking, there were roughly couple of attacks already since my talk started, right? So let's get started in terms of talking about hacking and taking a deep dive. Now, what I want you to understand, not just these numbers, right? I want you to know what it means to you. So I will put it in perspective that I saw that we are about 100 people in Google Meet right now. And if you do reverse math, 16 of us, right, who are attending this talk will have their credit card information, their personal bank details, or their social accounts hacked by next weekend, right? And that's 16 of us, right? Statistically speaking, right? And it's just 7 days from now, right? So let's just let that sink in, and let's just let that sink in. Let me actually see if I can do a split screen so that I can have access to the chat as well. Just hold on a second, guys. I want to. Okay, my screen is visible, correct?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Wonderful. So let's just, I would love to keep a close tab on the chat window as well. All right. So yeah, so we were talking about hacking, right? So let me tell you a story, right? So when my email ID was hacked, I was in grade 9, and it kind of blew my mind, right? I was still in school, and it was a very interesting time for me as a young boy to learn that somebody has this superpower to get into anyone's email account, right? And it it got me so excited that first I taught myself hacking. I started enjoying hacking so much that I self-taught myself. I in fact became the first Indian to win the Asia Hackathon competition, and I didn't stop there. I also started teaching hacking, right? So if you see, there are some screenshots from my workshops. I did I did ethical hacking, of course, and I did it for corporates, institutions like Indian Military Academy. I also taught at CBI, and I also ran certified hack workshops for students who were interested in hacking, right? And this was all when I was in college, second year. And the next obvious question is, when I talk about that, hey, I actually taught hacking, the next question is, why did you do it? And quite honestly, the answer is this, right? It's because I wanted to build an army of protectors, right? Army of cyber security experts. And let me tell you, that's a very, very hard job, right? Because if you think of it as a hacker, you need to find just one way to get in, right? You need to find that one vulnerability, one loophole to get in. But as a protector, you need to find as many ways as possible that can be exploited, right? So for me, I wanted to do some fence building, right? I wanted to have a world where there are more protectors than hackers, right? And if you think about it, the skill that you need for being a protector and a hacker, it's the same. It's exactly the same skill, right? To give you an example, you can use a gun to protect and join the army, or you can use it to harm people and be a terrorist, right? It's the intent that defines the color of your hack. In fact, I spent few years at Columbia, the Network Security Lab, NSL, and Microsoft at their headquarters in US doing some white hat hacking, and I was on the right hand side of the equation, right? Now, another thing that's common between these hackers is also that there is a lot of sense of accomplishment. There is this high, right? And just to relate to the rush, right? They feel this adrenaline rush that somebody can relate to, right? If you've played Uno, this is the craziest example that I could find. You get like draw fours consecutively, right? And immediately you feel like, oh, this is my game. I'm going to ruin you, right? That's insane. That's insane. That's crazy, but very, very exciting, right? So there is a lot of responsibilities that also come with these kind of skills and excitement. Now let me get into examples, right? Now one can hack into an email ID and get into anyone's account, right? I can send an email to you, Diksha, being Jeff Bezos or being Bill Gates, or I could write personally to you being anyone, right? It may not be them, but it could reflect their email address. Same with mobile phone. I could call you pretending to be anybody. I could call you using your dad's phone number. I could call you using your friend's number, right? And that's dangerous. That's dangerous to be able to flash any number on your screen and deceiving you to pick up my call, right? And it even gets very interesting when you're looking at IP devices, CCTV cameras, right? There are times, I'm not saying I've done that, but I know people who are very, very close who've hacked into airports. I'm not saying I've seen it, but as close to being a computer screen, I've seen planes landing, right? And you can take control of the most protected, most secure place in the world, right? And this is a picture of a hacker and I'm trying to, kind of be in the hacker's shoes. So this is the closest hoodie picture that I have that depicts a stereotype hacker, and close enough. And no secret, I'm fascinated with wearing hoodies, right? And I also wear black hats. If you've not noticed it, I'm wearing my black hat today as well, and I love wearing black hats. Although there's a running joke at Microsoft that somebody told me that, hey Gundi, introduce yourself with a fun fact. And I was wearing a black hat that time, and I said, hey, so the fun fact is that Microsoft has hired me as a white hat hacker, but the color of my hat that I'm wearing is black. Right? And that stuck with every security person in Microsoft. So for years to come at Microsoft headquarters in Redmond, I was known as the guy with the black hat, right? And it was very interesting because it's very mischievous when you start doing things wearing your black hat. Of course, I was paid by Microsoft to break into their products because I loved my paycheck. So I used to report it. But I love doing black hat hacking, right? So enough talking about hacking. I also promised folks that, I promised the organizer that if, I get enough excitement in the crowd, I might be tempted to do a live hack. So I'm not sure if people are up for it. I'm not sure if this is not the right forum. I'm not sure if you guys don't want to see it, but I'm prepared do a live hack. So if you would want, you can unmute yourself, put, tell me via chat. Okay, so chat is coming out. Yes, please, yes, please, yes, please. Okay, so before I do that, Diksha, since you are the organizer and you introduced to me, is it okay? I already spoke with the person who invited me. Is it okay if we do a live hack right here, right now?
Sure, sir, please. The chat box is flooded with yes.
Okay, perfect. I wonder if somebody wants to say no and it's too freaky for them. Okay, so let's do this. All right. So let's do a live hack. And now what I would want, let's do a phone hack, right? Because email hacking is kind of routine. I used to, when I used to run my hack workshops, I used to actually show live pictures of airports, plane landing and plane going. You have to be really lucky to see the takeoff and landing. But one time I actually hacked into an airport camera and somebody identified the airport. And it was crazy for me. Luckily, it was not India because I planned to stay in this country. Luckily, it was not India, but they actually pinged me personally saying that, by the way, I'm flying there next week and I'm so scared because I recognize that airport. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. So we will not do any airport hacks. We will not do email because it's routine. So let's do a phone hack. Now, what I can do is, just to demonstrate, how real this problem is, I will call one person using somebody else's phone number. How does that sound? Is that exciting enough? Yes, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. All right, cool, very much. Cool, Simran. So we'll do that. So for this, I need 2 volunteers. Let me switch on my camera. Let me stop my screen share. Let me not show you what I'm doing. It's always a good idea to not tell people how it's done. Okay, so I need 2 volunteers, and just if you want to make it a little bit more interesting, a boy and a girl. Do we have any volunteers in the crowd? Just, turn on your video, raise your hand, and Disha will pick the volunteer. I don't want to pick because it could be staged and Disha would be like, hey, you would have probably had that number and stuff like that. So let's do it like a magic trick, right? We are all girls over here. Oh, okay. Is this a girls' college? Oh,
Yes, sir.
Christine. Okay, I did not know that. Okay, so 2 girls, please. If I can have 2 volunteers, 2 girls, of course. Anybody who wants to raise their hand, use chat. It'll be interesting if you are willing to turn on your video. because I would love for you to have access to your phone and be able to show it on the camera, just so that you guys can see it, that this is real. So anybody who's willing to be on camera and has a phone and is willing to participate and trust me enough that I will not do anything really bad, and I will apologize even before and after, so it'll be safe. So if you guys want to do that, let's get started. Do I have a volunteer? Rashi, please. Okay, I don't know if please was requesting Rashi or people are requesting to take volunteers. It'll not happen if, okay, so we've got Ashi raising her hand. Perfect, I saw you. So Ashi is one. And who's the other one we are picking? Rashi? Let's pick somebody else. I already know Rashi. You might think that, she's too kind to me, helping me with her magic trick. Let's pick somebody that I don't know. I fairly know Diksha as well now. So anybody I do not know. So one is Ashi for sure. Ashi, don't chicken out. I saw you raising your hand. You are our volunteer number one. So Ashi is willing. Thank you for that written confirmation as well. That can be useful. I need one more volunteer.
I guess Arohi raised her hand. So
Arohi did?
Yeah.
Arohi, can you just turn on your camera, because I'm not sure if I was able to see you, but it'll be very nice if...
Yeah, we have Arohi.
Okay. Okay, so we have Arohi and we have Ashi. Perfect. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, so Arohi and Ashi, just similar names. So forgive me if it's a tongue twister, right? So Ashi and Arohi. So what I'll attempt to do here is I will call one person using the other person's phone number, right? Is it clear? Now, what I want you to do is give me the number and let me know whether you have a preference, whether you want me to call you or you want me to use your number and call the other person, right? So if you have a preference, let's figure that out. Generally, when I do this, I call the girl so that the number is not out everywhere. But here, because you both are girls, and it's a safe environment, there's no guys here, and I'm a very, very, very humble and a very straightforward guy. So I have my morals up. My mother is a principal of a school, so I can promise you I was raised with a very, very developed moral compass. Okay, so Arohi and Ashi, the best way for you to get me your numbers is by chat. Unfortunately, it will be public, but as I said, I think it's safe, right? You're okay with sharing a number over the chat, Arohi and Ashi? Perfect. I mean, you must be friends with all these people already, right? Okay, so I've got Arohi's number. Ashi, if you can send the number as well. So you may call her. Okay, so Arohi, is it okay if I use Ashi's number and give you a call?
Yes, sir, it's okay.
It's okay, perfect. So what I will do now is I will call you. So I'm using a different laptop just so that my IPs are very different and it's disconnected. So let me just get started. And what I need you to do in the meantime, because this can take some time, what I need you to do is, I'm just thinking, how can I keep you guys busy? Okay, so what we will do is, Arohi, since I'm calling you, I would want you to have your phone with you and in front of the camera. When the time comes, hopefully you'll get a call. And Ashi, if you can also put your phone on the camera, or actually in the meantime, let's make sure that this is actually working. Ashi, can you please do me a favor? Can you please call Arohi? The number is on the chat, and show your phone when you're calling. And Arohi, just show that the phone actually comes, so that when Ashi is calling, she has the number. Her phone is actually in the dial state, so that I'm not paying Ashi to help me with this. So why don't you do that in the meantime, and then I will try to call Arohi, sorry.
Sir, should I share my screen as this meet is also going on phone?
Oh, okay. So you are connected via phone, is it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So if you call.
I'll volunteer.
Okay, perfect. This is Chelsea. Oh, wow. Okay. One of my favorite teams. Okay. Ashi, is it okay to switch to Chelsea? Is that okay? I know you are willing. We'll do this sometime later.
No problem, sir.
Okay, perfect. So you've got another caller, Arohi. You're very popular today. So Chelsea, if you can send me your number, in the meantime, I'll get started with my stuff. And the stream drill, just show your phone, call Arohi, and Arohi confirm that you're getting a number. And then instead of Chelsea, I'll call you using a number. All right, Chelsea, you ready to do that for us?
Yes, sir. Done. Send the number.
Yeah, and why don't you call Arohi and just show us how that looks like.
Sir, I got the call.
Okay, perfect. So you have a number saved, so it's Chelsea D. Okay, so let me see if I can actually become Chelsea D for you. Wow, that actually rhymed. I was not prepared for that. I'm sorry, I'm just making lame jokes so that I can entertain you guys while I'm doing this, because this does take some time. It's not easy to be Chelsea. Okay, perfect. So you guys know that what happens is that once Chelsea calls, her phone goes into a dialing state and Arohi receives the call and she has a number saved, so it basically picks up the number, a name instead of the number, right? So both of them come in. So let me just get this right. Chelsea, I'm repeating this for you. Your number is 8318471488.
This is
my number.
Oh, okay. So this is your number. Sorry, Chelsea. Your number is 8810261405.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Okay. So. Okay. So let's do this. Let's get started. Arohi, if you will be kind enough to show your phone on the camera. Hopefully, I will get a call. Am I getting? Are you getting the call?
Yes, sir, I'm getting the call.
Perfect. So why don't you pick up the call? I'd love to speak with you.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so Chelsea, thank you for being a sport and showing that your phone is locked. So I am actually. Hey, Arohi, can you hear me? Nice and proper?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Perfect, perfect. Chelsea sends her regards and she says that you've been an awesome, amazing sport tonight and thank you for doing this. Chelsea, is there any other message that you want to give to Arohi? I can do that on your behalf. You're on mute, Chelsea. No worries, I'm Chelsea for the time being. So thank you, Arohi, and I'll connect with you in case I have to, even after the meeting, being Chelsea or anybody else you feel like, right? So let me disconnect the call. You can hear, Arohi, why don't you just say something if you want to say something to Chelsea? I have my laptop here.
Okay, so I just wanted that Chelsea has been working very hard since they got to love participants and
Okay, perfect, cool. Thank you. I just wanted to show that this works. And Chelsea, Arohi had some really nice words for you, and I was really
Thank you so much.
So perfect, right? So the idea here was, I don't know if you guys are scared or you're just excited or you're just seeing that draw for Uno card rush. I don't know what it is, but if you're scared, the idea is not to scare you. If you're excited, partially the idea, but more importantly, the idea is to make you understand how dangerous this is, right? I used my laptop to do this. And if, if I'm traveling and I don't have my laptop, I can actually use my phone and call ROE. I know how to do it. The only thing would be that I would need to first place a call on my phone and then take a call from my phone and call ROE and spoof the packets in the middle and switch my number with Chelsea's number, right? Laptop is a little bit easier because it's all set up. There's another this thing, and you have to have like various packets and everything, a good connection, which I'm not sure if I have, but I can I can call ROE with my phone, just that my number won't reflect, right? And for some reason, if ROE has blocked me, I can call her using Chelsea's number because I know she really likes Chelsea, right? She will pick up Chelsea's number, right? And if for some reason she does not like Chelsea and they have a fallout, Anushka, I think you're on, yeah, perfect. I just thought that maybe you just unmute yourself and scream. Okay. If Chelsea and ROE have a fallout, I can call ROE from her dad's number. That hopefully will not have a fallout, right? So I can always have a way to speak with ROE if I want to, right? She has no way. And nothing works, right? And if I really want to scare ROE, what I can do is I can actually call ROE using her own number. I have control over the 10 digits that I use, right? It'll be like a Karthik calling Karthik. Just in this case, it'll be ROE calling ROE, right? ROE will be like, what the heck? Like I'm seeing myself being called on the same number, right? I can call from 10 ones, 10 nines. I can do whatever the heck I want, right? So it's very, very, very dangerous. So have I made my point, besides making some side points that this is dangerous? Do people realize how people can use this in so many different ways if they have the skill? Are we on the same page? Anybody thinks that this is not dangerous enough? I'll take that as a compliment because I did it.
We can get a call from somebody representing a bank, a financial institution. It will be so difficult. How? Because if somebody calls from there, we genuinely trust if the number is like, we'll just go on the Truecaller and look at the number who is calling and it will match the bank representative.
Perfect. Thank you, Chelsea, for putting thoughts in my mind. That's a very interesting thought. I can actually call you from Access, right? I can actually call you from the 1-800 number, which is saved in Truecaller. And I had never thought of this before. This is Chelsea giving me ideas. So Chelsea says that if you have a Truecaller number and I know your HDFC bank, I can actually call you from HDFC and start calling you. And then Chelsea, we'll connect offline on how we can take this further and what we can do. Arohi, don't pick up any bank calls. Be safe. And Chelsea, we have to connect. Okay, cool. So I'm so glad that you guys are understanding how dangerous this is. And Chelsea, thank you for that example because that's actually my next slide. So you guys are really, really on top of it. So let me get back to my screen share. While I do that, any other interesting Chelsea-like ideas that we can use by doing this? Any interesting use cases? Anyone? You can use the chat, you can unmute yourself. I always like to do this because, boy, I get so many ideas. Mostly around the banks, and my ex-girlfriend has blocked me. What do I do? But it won't be a case here, so we are sorted. Anyone else, or I go back to my presentation? Okay. So let me get back to...
Kidnapping is also possible. Some friend calling from some number to come at such and such place. Anything is possible.
Oh my God, this is a very interesting problem. May I please have the name of who said kidnapping? I am the first. I have not heard this. Who was this? I am really interested. This was, Disha, did you make a note of it? Who was it? Or did we lose a very interesting idea? And
I only mentioned it, sir.
Oh, Chelsea. Chelsea,
Yeah.
you're on fire. Okay, we have to connect. We have to connect. Okay, perfect. She's such a super detective mind. Yeah, she can like kidnap people, and especially after ROE said such nice things about her. Perfect. Okay, awesome. So I hope you can see my screen, guys. You can, right? Okay, wonderful. So let's get started. We talked about this. I'm not sure if the adrenaline rush is still there. Maybe for ROE because she received a call, or maybe for Chelsea because she's getting a lot of ideas. But I don't know if the rush is still with you guys. We're getting a heart attack. But this is Chelsea's favorite slide. Have you seen this show on Netflix?
Yes, sir, we've seen this ad.
You've seen this? Have you seen the show? Okay, see the show. You'll get even better implemented ideas. It's a plot. It's a place. It's called Jamtara Sabka Number Aega. It's on Netflix. It's Netflix exclusive, I believe. And what happens is that this guy is the lead, where he is belonging from a small town in Jamtara, and he starts calling people and starts saying that you've won a lottery, and this is regarding your card, and just give me the OTP so that I can transfer you the money. And a lot of people give the OTP, and what happens is the money gets transferred to this guy instead of them getting the money, right? And I know that they've now started doing 2 years. Somebody said phishing, so I mean, I'm so glad to say that, right? So this is a subset of what we call the social phishing, right? It's a social engineering attack where you can actually disguise yourself, and with your social engineering skills, make the other person believe that that's your true identity, right? So I can be like, hey, this is SDFC calling Citibank, and this guy does it very well. He actually uses the girl's voice because people say girls are more credible. So if you do have to hack someone sometime, Chelsea will use you. This guy calls up and says, hey, you won lottery, do this, give me the OTP, and the OTP comes, and the money gets transferred. Now, what is happening again is, because you've tricked that guy once, they say, oh, sorry sir, गलती हो गई, मेरे पास 50,000 आ गए, आप एक बार OTP दीजिए, मैं रिवर्स कर देता हूँ, आपको 1 लाख भेज देता हूँ. वो बंदा फिर OTP भेज देता है, 50,000 फिर चले जाते हैं. Right? So it's just insane, right? So if you haven't seen the show, watch it. It's very interesting. It'll definitely make my point. And they do it in a very, very interesting way, right? So superpower, right? Who agrees that this is a superpower to have? Raise your hand, say chat, yes, no. Do you think this is a superpower? Anyone? Yes, no.
Hacking itself is a superpower.
Perfect. Yes. So I mean, once you have these things, right, you feel like you have a cloak behind you, right? You can do whatever you want. You can send emails from wherever. You can call from wherever. You can hack into websites. You want to shop tomorrow, and you can't afford that ring for your mom or your girlfriend. You can just go to Flipkart and order for ₹1. Right? Oh, Flipkart is a bad example. Let's say Amazon. I work for Flipkart. You can go to Amazon and order a golden ring or a platinum studded ring for ₹1, right? It's definitely a superpower, right? But what happens when you have the superpower? Just imagine for a minute you have the superpower, right? The question is, what would you do? Right? And I read a very beautiful quote which said, if you want to judge a character of someone, give him power. Right? So if you have this power, what would you do? Right? You're college students, so I'm not thinking that you may, hack or kidnap people, but you might want to get yourself added to one of the best universities in the world, right? Or you are like, hey, it's so difficult to get into Harvard, yeah? They ask for LORs and SOPs, and I don't even know whether I'll get in. If I know, I'll just add my name, right, to the Harvard database ID. So easy, right? Would you do that? Right? And unfortunately or fortunately, I've actually seen people traveling that path, right? I've seen people going from a very highly developed moral compass to slipping and doing something that they're not supposed to do. right? So it's very, very, important to ensure that you're walking a very tight rope and there are no slippages, right? You are having your moral, experiences intact, right? So be a superhero, but do it for a good cause, right? And that's what I say. I justify by doing it. That's what I did at Microsoft. But let's now come to what I learned being a hacker, right? For hackers, everything is a challenge, right? They look at everything as a challenge. And when I was taking the same example of me wanting to go to grad schools, I went to my counselor and I said, "Hey, counselor, I want to go to the top university in the world." And she said, "Gundeep, that might be difficult because you really don't have the profile." Because I was in a private school doing my bachelor's, and they said, "I don't think you can get into Harvard. You can get into Stony Brook." And I'm like, "Hey, I don't want to go there. I've not heard of that university. I want to go to Harvard and I want to go to Columbia." Then she told me, "Okay, Gundeep, if you want to do, you'll have to do these things." And as a devoted hacker, I did everything because I accepted the challenge. I did not take the easier route. I just did not add my, student details to the Columbia and Harvard ID, right? I did everything that it took, right? So I was focused, very, very focused, and I took it as a challenge. And I said, I'm going to do everything. I wrote research papers, I wrote articles, so much so that at one point my counselor said, "Gundeep, you've done everything that I ever have to recommend." And I said, "Yeah, but we still have a month. What can I do?" And she said, "I don't know." And she said, "Gundeep, just go write a book." I made sure I actually wrote a book within a month. And my applications went as me having an author, right? Gelling with Gmail Labs. Talk about the book sometime later, and even Ruskin Bond gave a testimonial for my book, right? And I got through Columbia. It's an Ivy League university in New York, if you guys have not heard of it. You can use this challenge in so many ways, right? This is just one example. I love playing basketball. I was able to, use this challenge accepted attitude to, turn the game around. 30 seconds left and taking that winning shot, right? You can do it for crazy things like weight loss, right? I was on the left-hand side, I was overweight, and once I decided, hey, I want to lose weight, challenge accepted. I lost 23 kgs in 5 months, right? It's how you condition your mind, right, to accept challenges. And that is something very, very important as a hacker that I've learned. And nothing is impossible, because for hackers, failure is not an option, right? They don't fail. For them, everything is a revision. It's not if they get in. It's only a question of when they get in, right? Because it's perseverance. Hacking teaches you perseverance. Never give up, right? If it's very difficult hack, you might not be able to get in 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a year, 10 years. But given enough time, I will get in. So the question is when, not if, right? So just try this, have that focus, have that perseverance, and, condition your mind as a hacker does, right? So another example, again, I said, I wanted to keep it very personal, sharing my own personal stories. So with hacker, they don't experiment, they don't go the traditional route, right? They love experimenting. They love trying new things, right? And I remember when I was in US and I was doing my Columbia University degree, I did an internship at Amazon, right? And I got a software developer job. But I was always excited about a technical program manager job description, and they didn't have a TPM intern. And I walked up to my recruiter and I said, I want to be a TPM intern. She said, Gundeep, we've never had a TPM intern. And I told her, just because it's not been done before, that does not mean it can't be done that way, right? So I said, I want to be a TPM intern. And series of discussion, I actually became the first TPM intern that Amazon ever had at their headquarters, right? So I work hard, have fun, make history, right? Be focused, have that perseverance, and set out to make that history, right? So just one example, experiment, right? People love experimenting. Another thing that I love to give example is that they like to do multiple things at once, right? So this is me in a gym, and I had some important catch up to do. I actually started doing my steps, and if you can see my laptop there, I was also working, right? So hackers are also attributed to running multiple parallel threads, right? And it's something so similar. If you do it often, you don't realize when you're talking in English and ekdam se Hindi mein switch kar jate ho. It doesn't take a toll on your mind, right? You can do that very easily, बहुत आसानी से. मेरे को सोचना भी नहीं पड़ रहा, and I can turn into my English language, right? It's conditioned because you know those two languages so well. And yes, I used to get in like 40,000 steps in a day and work for 4 hours while I was on the treadmill, right? And then I found a more effective way to do it. I got an under-desk treadmill beneath all my monitors. So I had 3 monitors, and this is my setup at Microsoft. So I would either be in meetings or I would just be in my office, standing and walking and doing my work, right? Somebody says this is cool, Rimchim. If you want, I can tell you how to build this setup. It's very exciting. It takes a little bit time in the first month to develop that muscle memory, but if you do it enough times, 2.4 to 2.5 is my good speed, where it doesn't really bother me. My productivity is not harmed, and I walk on a 2.4 speed. And quite honestly, today, if I want to do something very, very exciting, I can't sit and do it. I'll just get up, I'll start walking, it gets my hemoglobin up, and then I do it, right? So it's actually counterintuitive that if you're doing something important, sit down. I don't. When I'm doing lazy work, I sit down because I'm like, but if I want to do something very exciting, write a very innovative email, I start walking, right? That's how my mind is conditioned now. So Randy Posh, one of my favorite people that I follow. If you don't know about him, watch his last lecture. Last lecture is a concept series started in US with professors coming and doing a talk with only one difference, that they are given a scenario that if this is your last lecture, what is it that you will tell your students? And for Randy Posh, why this was very interesting is because when he signed up for last lecture, a month later, he actually got diagnosed with cancer. And the doctor actually told him that you only have 2 months to live. So his last lecture was actually his last lecture. And there's an entire book around it. His family was, blaming him that, hey, you just have 2 months to live and you're, preparing for this last lecture. You should be spending time with me. And it's very powerful, right? It's one thing to put yourself in one's shoes. Somebody has read it, Sakshi, perfect. I'm sure, you can share it with your friends. It's amazing. The kind of learnings that he shares, it's awesome. And one bit where he says, there are a lot of head fake learnings when you do something. When you play soccer, you're not only learning how to play soccer, you're learning teamwork. You're learning how to trust your friends. You're learning a lot of other things that you don't set out to learn, right? So when I was learning hacking, I didn't realize that these are the things that I'm actually carrying forward in my life, right? And I'm using them. So I just wanted to, have you think about hacking. Hacking is traditionally, breaking into systems, getting unauthorized access. But I want you to think of hacking in a different way, right? Hack into your life, hack into your mind, hack into whatever you want to do, and develop an algorithm, a step-by-step process on how you want to do it and achieve it and nail that, right? And no goal is unachievable, and you'll get it, right? And some of these founders of these companies are also called hackers only because of this reason, right? Because they can do anything that they want by just having this hacker mindset, right? Which is so important. So harness that superpower and realize that you have it. It can be developed. Whether you can get into a computer system or not, it can be developed, right? You have that superpower. And remember, what God has made you is his gift to you. What you make of yourself is your gift to God. So do something very interesting with your life. Hacking your mind will help you do exactly that. Just figure out a way to master your mind is to master your life. Figure out what you want and go use this hacker's mindset to achieve a goal that you feel could not be attained. So my message to you guys is hack, hack, hack. Ethically, of course, but do hack, right? And thank you all. God bless us all. So that is what I had in terms of the talk. I am more than happy to take questions. I will stop my screen share. Hopefully you guys learned something and were paying attention to me as much as Chelsea's interesting ideas. but hopefully you learned something, right? Which was my main motive. So Diksha, questions. I'm open to taking questions.
Okay, sure, sir. Please post down your questions into the chat box.
I know I might have taken a lot of time. I don't know if you're okay with, a spillover, or we can cut down the Q&A session. I can leave my contact details with you guys. So if you have any follow-up on hacking, on entrepreneurship, I know entrepreneurship is also a very favorite topic. How to get into Harvard, MBA, all of those questions I'm happy to answer if if you're following short of time, but we can take a couple of questions.
So we have time. We have a little time, yeah.
Perfect. I know Chelsea is definitely contacting me, for sure. We'll build on some ideas, Chelsea, I promise you that. Okay, participants are requested to, okay. Cool. Any questions, guys? Anything that I didn't cover in the deck? Anything that triggers your mind?
Question.
Yes, please.
What's the best and scariest hack you did to any of your friends?
Okay, this always comes up, always. And I don't know if it's the scariest, but I don't want you to think in that direction. So I'll give you a very personal story, right? So when I was doing this is the first time I actually learned that I can email from any email ID to anyone and have my email land into their inbox. Superpower. I was actually in my 12th standard, and in 12th standard, all you could think was to get into IIT, right? I didn't get into IIT. I knew I wouldn't because I didn't study. So to my family, I was like, no, IIT, of course. Like, where else will I go? But I didn't study. And there was one of my friend who was in the borderline, right? People who studied knew they will get into IIT. People who didn't study, like me, knew that they will not get. My one friend, Mitul, he was like, yaar, ho bhi sakta hai, yaar, nahi bhi ho sakta hai, ho bhi sakta hai, nahi bhi ho sakta hai. So I'm like, yaar, chal yaar, iske saath maze lete hain. So I sent him an email from the IIT official email ID because I knew friends kis email ID se aati hai. Us email ID se I wrote him that congratulations, you've got IIT Delhi and we'll be happy to give you any course that you want. And I took that template, copy pasted, put in his roll number, put in his name, and said congratulations. Now I thought a very, very good friend of mine, he'll call me and say, Kundeep, shit, I got through IIT. And I'm like, awesome, dude, congratulations. By the way, so did I. I also got the same email, and we'll have a laugh about it. But instead what he did, which afterthought anybody would do, he told his family. And what his family did, told his extended family. And within 20 minutes, everybody in Delhi was at his house celebrating with laddus and, Mitul, you are the star. His sister was like euphoric. She posted on Facebook, and that's how I realized that it's on Facebook. And then Mithun was so excited, he didn't think of Facebook. And I called Mithun. I'm like, hey, dude, why did you call me? He's like, I was about to call you, dude. I've got into IT. I'm like, why did you call me first? And he's like, kya farak padta hai? Like, bata to raho, ghar aa, laddu kha. And I'm like, main nahi aa raha tere ghar. And that's when I realized family, I knew everyone. And with a lot of courage, like 2 hours later, I actually went to his house, and there were at least 30 people in the house. Everybody was celebrating. It was a party. And I had to break the news that it was me who was stupid enough to do this. So it's easy to not to think, make it in a joke, but they have consequences, they have repercussions. So I want to leave you with this. It's scary. I have a lot of other stories, but please, please, please be careful and think it in the right way. Sorry to answer that short question and long story. Any questions, sir? Anyone?
I'd like to ask one thing. So recently, the Nidhi Razdan's case that happened where she was sent an email from Harvard for as a faculty member.
Okay.
She being the topmost journalist of India was trapped in this. How will we know if our mail is hacked or if we are not getting mails from a genuine source? Because these days we are applying to job applications. So we need to be like confident. If it can happen with the topmost journalist of India, then of course it can go wrong with us too.
Absolutely. I'm so glad, Chelsea, you asked this question. I'm so happy. So my talk is somewhat making sense. So I'm glad from kidnapping thought process to 15 minutes here. So let me answer this question, Chelsea. You're right. And I used to run ethical hacking workshops because unfortunately to do this forensics is what we call it, cybersecurity expert, you have to actually wear the hat of, and you need some technical skills, right? So for email, just to answer your question technically and then non-technically as well. Technically, there's something called email headers, right? That you have to look for. Email headers are basically how this email spoofing happens is that if I have an account on Google, I will use my Google SMTP server to send an email from Google, right? And Google knows that I have an account and it can authenticate me. But if I have an email account with Harvard, and I don't go to Harvard's SMTP server and I go to some other SMTP server which has the capability to send emails and say, hey, I am Gundeep at fas.harvard.edu and I want to send an email, that guy has no way to authorize me or authenticate me, right? Because it doesn't know my Harvard password. So once I'm able to convince that I want to send an email and this is my email ID, all I need is an email ID. And then the guy says, what's your password? I can say whatever. I can say, go to hell. And it'll accept my password because there's no way to accept. And then I will send my email from that SMTP server using this email ID and land it in your inbox, right? So that's the concept. So how you can trace it, that when you look at email headers, you have to ensure that if you have a google.com email, the SMTP server is a Google server. It's not gundeep.com sending you email when you have a google.com, right? So it's a little bit more technical, but that's how you actually ensure that there is no spoofing and you are who you are. And you basically, that's like your Aadhaar card. You say you are Chelsea, show me your Aadhaar card, right? Otherwise, you'll just say, I am Barcelona, and I'll be like, hey, Barcelona, because I have no ways of authenticating you. Does that make sense, Chelsea? Okay. Perfect. I was trying to keep it non-technical. Okay, any hack of your life which was against the cyber laws. This session is being recorded, and I realized after I did the hack that this is being recorded. So now that I know it's being recorded, I'm going to skip that.
It's all right. It's all ethical hacking only. Nobody is going to really try. You can tell the repercussions of, if somebody just tries to do non-ethical hacking. What are the repercussions? What can a person fall into?
Perfect. And just for the record, I actually had Arohi in the chat window saying that it's okay. So I had a verbal confirmation from her. So repercussions, I mean, you've heard horror stories, right? Kevin Mitnick, let me take that world's greatest hacker is what he's called. Kevin Mitnick, one of the best social engineering hackers, and he was hunted down by FBI. And he spent a lot of time in prison. He was smart. He had a lot of things to do, but he had to spend a number of years in prison because he just was hacking for the fun of it. And he was just 2 steps ahead of FBI. He would hack into FBI cameras. So he would know when FBI is coming to his house, he would move away and all of that. And eventually he did get caught, right? And he had to spend time in prison. But when he got out of prison, because he's a smart guy, he started his information security consultancy firm and he became a billionaire in 2 years, right? And he even wrote a book on hacking. So repercussions as grave as you can think of. But if you have that skill, use it positively, please. Spider-Man, with great power come great responsibility. Keep that in mind.
So we have a query in the chat box which says that being a girl, we post our pictures and tag our locations in them. So how we could protect our content on social media?
So that's a very good question, and I'm going to give you little check boxes that you can do to protect your account. One, 2-factor authentication is really the next thing. Hackers find it very difficult to hack into 2FA or multi-factor authentication accounts. So do enable 2FA, which means your account is not just with your password, which can be easily cracked. It sends you something on your phone or a bio. I mean, I don't think Facebook has biometric, but some other form that works with your password in order to log you in, right? So that's one. You can enable 2FA. What all you can also do is please don't accept any unknown friend requests. People do that because that's the first entry point of hackers. They want to go close. If you see anybody suspicious on your friend list, please remove them. Don't trust people easily. What else can you do? if you do, please report, right? That's the first step, because a lot of people, even the authorities, don't take it seriously if the formal report is not formalized, right? So do report, enable 2FA, be sure that you trust your friend circle, keep it restricted, and keep a very, very close tap on your account. Even you can check login activity, right, on Facebook, Gmail, and make sure that it's only you who's logged in, and nobody from Iraq or Israel or Australia or somewhere else or anywhere else that you don't have any reason to be.
Thank you so much, sir. As there are no more queries in the chat box, so we would like to move forward with the session. Thank you so much, sir, for answering all the queries really very, very patiently. It was indeed a very enriching and insightful session. Now, I would like to invite our Vice Principal, ma'am, Dr. Sarita Nanda, to address the gathering, and I would like to welcome her on the behalf of the entire family of CyberCell for being the part of the event.
Thank you so much. I just, Anjali, one last thing. I'm actually putting out my phone number, contact details on the chat. Just ensure that if anybody has any further questions, I'm more than happy to take it. I'll send my phone number as well as my email ID for any follow-ups.
Thank you so much, sir, for that. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for inviting me. It was, in fact, a privilege to hear such enlightening talk, and it is given a real in-depth into our scary world, where in fact we get scared, and but it also makes us, we should be cautious in things which we put on the social media. So that is what we have to learn, and how to protect. So these are the few things which you have told, and so this is in fact, it's given us a world and opened up a world where we can really interact with people. But of course, everything has its own problems. So thanks for giving the insight, and I hope the students would have learned a lot from an expert who's been really into this cyber cell activities. And so thanks, Gundeep sir. Thanks for being with us and enlightening us. And I think there was another speaker in the morning also. So they were all very good. So thanks for giving us the insight. Welcome.
Yes, thanks, Dr. Nanda, for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your words. On the behalf of entire cell, I would like to extend my gratitude towards our speaker for the day, Mr. Gundeep sir. Thank you so much, sir, for our invitation and helping us in getting various deep insights about hacking. You are a true source of victories. Like you always inspire us to give our best and never stop learning. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah, I request the sir and the students to please turn on their videos so that we
find a new way to stand. This new way has been taught by none other than this COVID pandemic, making us all sit in the home in front of our laptops. With CyberCell Dolathram College, we make sure that this too can be made insightful and enlightening. With this, I, Diksha, with my co-host Anjali Gaur, would like to welcome you all for the much-awaited Speaker Summit.
This is the time to introduce our next guest, who would be briefing us about how the life of millennials and Gen Z beyond digitalization. Dr. A.G. Minai is a brand storyteller of Southeast Asia and had the privilege of speaking at over 200 events since 2013 around the topics such as brand leadership, intergenerational dynamics, digital disruption, and workplace emotional intelligence. A two-time TEDx speaker since 2017, he was awarded as the best LinkedIn influencer by Malaysia Social Media Week. Marketing in Asia magazine listed him as one of the top 43 inspirational LinkedIn icons to follow in 2018. He was also invited to be the member of Top Voices Malaysia, 30 most influential people on LinkedIn that same year. In 2020, he was recommended as a member of Forbes Communication Council, giving him a track record in brand storytelling. Before becoming the serial entrepreneur and venture builder that he spent 13 years in industry, having worked with brands like Google, Alliance, Marcus Evans, Tune Group, and many. He sees himself as a futurist storyteller and inspiring author who's on a mission to disrupt people's mindset instead of just their business models. He's a storyteller who shares his stories to shift us all into better future. Welcome our guest with a huge round of virtual applause. Now, I would like to invite our convener, Ms. Sushma Arora ma'am, our co-convener, Ms. Sanya ma'am, our president, Ms. Chelsea Kukreja, and our co-president, Ms. Namita Gupta, to offer a virtual bouquet to our guests. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us. It's a great honor to have you. And please accept this virtual bouquet as a token of respect and gratitude.
Very, very kind of you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir, you're audible. Now I would like to hand over the dais to the speaker for the day. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So I had the privilege of joining 20 minutes before my speaking slot. And I joined and I was seeing Gundeep go at it. And he was like nonstop, right? And I was like, wow, this is enlightening, right? I loved his presentation, you know. I'm a tech entrepreneur myself. So he speaks my lingo, he speaks my language, and I was very, very inspired by his journey, and it's part of the reason why I became a storyteller. Now, Gundeep is a hacker, and he was talking about what I call growth hacking. He was talking about using the methodology of hacking in the form of growth hacking for everything in your life beyond programming and coding, right? I come from a slightly different background, right? And I'm someone who aspires to be someone who gives hope through the form of storytelling. And I've done this for Fortune 500 companies. I've done this for solopreneurs. And before I jump into my slides and just go through, the topic of the day, I just want to introduce myself a little bit. The introduction that you did earlier, I don't know if it was Anjali. Anjali, did you do the introduction for me earlier, or was that you, Anjali, or who was that?
Yes, sir, I was there.
Yeah, so that's the formal marketing introduction that everybody gives. It's like, yeah, I did this and I did that, I did this, yeah, but nobody really cares about that, right? I'm the sort of person that hates carrying titles on my sleeve. So what if I've written for Forbes? So what, I've been a 2-time TEDx speaker. So I work for brands alongside like Google, so on and so forth. That is a stepping stone in my life that brought me to where I am today. But fundamentally, the fundamental reason why I became a storyteller is because people are misunderstanding the age that we live in. And I'm going to talk about that today. That's the topic I want to talk about, because believe it or not, what you see today is very far from what I used to be in school. When I was in school, from the age of 9 to 16, I was savagely bullied. And I'm sorry to be explicit. I hope nobody minds this, but I'm just going to tell you how bad it was. It was to the extent that I was urinated on twice on the football field, right? That's how badly I was bullied. Why was I bullied? Because I was a mixed kid. I had mixed parentage, so I didn't fit in. I didn't look like other people. I didn't look like the rest of the people around me. I was in an international school. I was small. I was physically a lot smaller than the other boys, particularly. So the boys all had their growth spurt much earlier than I did. Of course, nobody believes that now. Now when they see me, I'm 6'2", they're like, really? Seriously, you? But they don't believe it, right? When I was younger, I was a lot scrawnier. And of course, the biggest reason that most people used to make fun of me was I used to stammer. I used to stammer a lot, right? So I used to do a lot of that, right? And I still remember I was invisible. I was invisible to a lot of people. And something magical happened in that moment when I was invisible, right? And I'm sharing the story of who I really am. Not the titles and all the accolades and the milestones that I carry. I'm sharing deep down in my heart who I really am and how I became who I am today, right? And that all began because of this savage bullying that took place in high school. And that was a turning point. And I went through so much of pain, but here's the irony. When we're kids, right? And I don't know about the general age group that, everyone is here right now. I'm assuming that all of you are pretty much Gen Zs, right? Generation Zs. the vast majority. I'm a millennial, right? I'm a millennial. I'm 35 years old. So I'm one generation above you. And I'm going to go and talk a little bit more about some of the key differences between our generations. But, you know, as I had a conversation with Simon Sinek about this, I don't know if anybody knows Simon Sinek. He's an authority on generational differences and generational dynamics. If you haven't read his books, you certainly should. Google him, Simon Sinek, right? I've been in touch with him off and on over the years on LinkedIn, and I've talked about generational differences. I've disagreed openly about the way he does things. But coming back to my own past and my own story, you know, there was a time in which I really, really wanted to fit in. And I want to ask that to the entire audience, right? How many times have you stopped in your life? How many times have you felt like you really just want to fit in? You know, you want to fit in with your friends, with your relationships, with your employers, with your job, with your internship. You want to have some sort of a camaraderie, some sort of a similarity where you can find something that bridges and allows you to be familiar with someone else, right? And then you spend the majority of your life, particularly when you're like from the ages of like 11 or 12, all the way up to probably about 20, 21, you have this phase in your life where you really want to be part of something. You really want to fit in. And here's the sacrifice that most kids make in that process. They sacrifice their uniqueness, right? And when I say uniqueness, I don't mean UNIQUE. I mean YOUNIQUE, unique, as in only you have that particular essence, right? I'm AJ, right? I mean, don't have to use formalities. Don't call me Dr. A, just call me AJ, right? I've got a sense of AJ-ness, right? Gundeep was on right now. He's got the sense of Gundeepness, right? Every single person has their own essence, right? And here's the really sad thing about schools. And it's not just in countries like India, it's all over the world, because I've spent so much of time working with different academic institutions, including Ivy League institutions, all the way down to unknown universities in different parts of the world. And they all have that fundamental same problem, which is kids not understanding the value of emotional intelligence in the journey of learning versus IQ, right? Now, this obsession we have over straight A's, this obsession and this pressure that we have in communities, not just in Asian communities, but also globally across it, this obsession with chasing that bucket, chasing that dream, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. I was very inspired by Gundeep's story of going to Harvard. I was inspired by that, right? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with Ivy League institutions. What I'm trying to say though is that there's much more than life when you step into the world of employment. There is so much more in life, and you believe it or not, employers are not as impressed with your GPA as you think they are, right? There is a huge difference, and there's a huge disconnect between what we call hard skills and soft skills, right? And I want to talk about that because the digital world that we live in today has made us insensitive to this. Johns Hopkins released a study recently, and it was about 2 years ago, and Johns Hopkins actually reported fundamentally through statistical study over the last 12 years that empathy as an index has dropped generation on generation. What does that mean? That means that we would rather spend more time fitting in as opposed to embracing what's inside of us and understanding that we have a level of self-awareness that allows us to achieve anything we want in our careers, in our lives, in our relationships, right? And that's who I really am. I was a bullied kid who was struggling to fit in for the longest time, only to realize that I was born to stand out, right? And the efforts that I made to overcome that is a journey that I'd like to share with you, hand in hand with the slides I'm about to show you as well, right? So let me just open up my, let's see if I do a window. Should I do a window? Yeah, I should do a window. No window. Okay, it's not window. Entire screen. Give me a second, guys. 1 second. Okay, now. Do you guys see my screen? You do, right? Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Do you see my slides now? You do?
Yes,
Do you?
sir. Yes, sir.
Awesome. All right. Full screen mode. Right. So I talked about this earlier, right? I've dedicated probably like a good almost a decade ever since I left the corporate world and I became a full-time serial entrepreneur. And now we run an accelerated incubation firm out of Southeast Asia, headquartered in Malaysia and Singapore, where we've invested in over 17 companies around the world, including the US, the Middle East, and Dubai, and in different parts of Asia as well. And one of the things that I've uncovered in that whole journey, and particularly after I left the corporate world, working for really large brands like Google and working for even small companies, and then of course my own experience as an entrepreneur, as a storyteller, I realized that fundamentally the idea of separating different generations from a perspective of Gen Y, Gen Z, traditionalists, baby boomers. I noticed there are some traditionalists on this call. There are some baby boomers, possibly. There's some Gen Y. There's just some Gen X, maybe. And that's the reality of today. The reality of today is that we have so many different generations hand in hand, rubbing shoulders in the same workplace. And one of the things that we need to realize is there is a huge misunderstanding of this age, right? When I was bullied as a kid, and nobody wanted to be my friend, I used to spend my time at lunch, sitting alone, having my lunch alone. And I used to go, it was a really big school. So I used to go, I don't know if you guys know, there's like these big fields out there where kids play, they have their soccer games, their badminton games and all that stuff. And then they have these bleachers, right? These bleachers are where they sit on top. I mean, we call them bleachers in the US. I don't know what you call them in India, but like they're seats, like they're large seats that are one framed, right? They're large, big seats where people watch games. And what I used to do was, because I was scared and I wanted to get away from the bullies, I used to go underneath the bleachers. And I used to spend my times alone. I'd be completely invisible to a lot of people. So people would come and play, and during break time, I used to be sitting there hidden in the bleachers, just sitting and eating my lunch alone because I was scared that I was going to get punched, bullied, ridiculed, the usual, right? That happened from ages 9 all the way up to 16. And one of the most wondrous things that happened was that I was a horrible student academically, but one thing that led to me spending time alone, when you're not a popular kid in school, and as you're growing up, you spend a lot of time alone, right? And when's the last time you think about it? If you have an extended period of time in your life where you spend more time alone, particularly in COVID-19, I think COVID-19 has reset us mentally in many ways. One of the things that COVID-19 has done for a lot of people, irrespective of generations, is given them the value of self, right? Because people were left at home, they were stuck at home. They weren't, they were not able to get out. There were times where there were lockdowns. I don't know how it was in India, but from what I heard in the news, it was pretty bad as well. It was pretty bad in Malaysia. We were on lockdown. People just spent a lot of time at home because it was a silver lining. Because as much as we like to call ourselves connected today, the truth is we're really not together anymore, right? And I'm going to explain this to you, right? Simon Sinek actually talked about, the generational differences between Y, between X, between et cetera, et cetera. But I disagreed with him openly, right? I even sent him a message about this on LinkedIn. I said, listen, man, the idea is not to fundamentally create generational differences, because that's where you're overgeneralizing and you're stereotyping an entire generation, an entire age demographic. The reality is we should be looking at things that are commonalities. We should be looking at things that make us one generation, irrespective of age, irrespective of culture, where you are, what you do, right? And I can prove this very easily, right? And I actually shared this with Simon as well. And I talked about this in Google, and I've talked about this in my first TEDx talk. If you want to check it out, I spoke about on my first TEDx talk, I talked about it, educate for life, not for work, right? Just check it out. You'll see what I'm talking about. Is that there's fundamentally this mentality now where we feel like, okay, we see someone who's over the age of 60, or, we automatically have this knee-jerk reaction with an assumption that this person, he or she may not be technologically savvy, right? I mean, I'm guilty of it too, right? I've got parents as well, they're 60, 70 years old. You have this fundamental kind of like a knee-jerk reaction a lot of times when you're younger. Oh, they don't get tech the way we do, right? They don't get technology. And that's the reason why they call your generation, Gen Z, digital native, right? Because you were born into a world where you guys never knew the sound of a modem logging onto the internet, right? You grew up in a world where, you had no idea what it was like before a mobile phone, right? Or a smartphone. So that's a completely different dynamic. And what I'm trying to get at here is that when you think about it, these things are completely false. These assumptions are completely false, because I've been to colleges and universities all around the world, and you go into a college and you ask people, how many of you guys have an Instagram profile? Everybody raises their hand, right? How many of you guys are on TikTok? Everybody's got their hands up. Now, these are final year students just about to hit the job market. And then I say, how many of you guys have a LinkedIn profile? And like 5 people put up their hands. And then I further qualify it and I go, how many of you are on LinkedIn actively and creating content so that you can differentiate yourself to potential employers or would-be investors, right? And like 2 people out of the 5 left in that class, right? Now, here's the fundamental issue. We have this belief and this assumption that digital natives are, all knowing about the digital lifestyle. They know how to drive, they know how to utilize, they know how to leverage digital. But then you have these conundrums, these issues, right, where they're not seeing the most obvious things. You're a final year student in university. The one thing that you should be doing is content creation. If you're going to do your content creation and you're going to create a differentiation online as a brand, the one place you should definitely be prioritizing, or one of the most important places, is LinkedIn, right? Not TikTok or Instagram. I'm not downplaying those platforms. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing against them. I'm just telling you that the reality is, if you're looking to differentiate yourself as a thought leader in the future in industry, then you're maybe putting too much of your time at the wrong place at the wrong time, right? And that platform analogy I gave you with digital natives, and then that analogy I gave you with older people, about 65, 70, assuming they're not good with tech. I have business partners in the Middle East right now who are about 65, 70 years old, and they're very tech savvy, right? And they're extremely, extremely switched on technologically. So you see what I mean? This whole idea of differentiating generations, right? Oh, that's a millennial. Oh, that's just Gen Z. And these days, Gen Zs have this new term. I don't know if you guys have been following it. They like to call us Gen Ys and millennials. We like to we engage in adulting, right? There are a lot of these little memes going around online. There's different lingo, and that's fine. That's all good, well and good and fun, right? But the reality is, we aren't looking at the current age we're in from an employability point of view and from a storytelling point of view the right way. Instead of creating differentiation between different generations, we should be looking at one commonality. And what is that commonality? I call it Generation C, right? So today's topic, I'm gonna zero in on the millennial and the Gen Z narrative, right? I don't know if the majority of you are 23, 24 right now. I'm assuming you might be, but as a millennial, I'm 35, and right now, for the sake of this topic, because Rashi and the other guy, the other girls were telling me about how I'd like to hone in on what's next and how should they survive in this age of digitalization. So that's what I'm going to do, right? The reality is, in the workplace, if we take subject matter experts like Simon Sinek, like Gary Vee, and a lot of the other people, Seth Godin, all these people that I read and I'm sure you've heard about, they have a fundamental layout like this, what we're seeing on the screen right now. They have, of course, you have a dwindling amount of traditionalists that tend to be the chairman of the groups today. You have boomers who are still within that as well. They're also dwindling out. There's Gen X, which are primarily your CEOs and your CFOs and your C-suite today still, a good chunk of them, but almost 40 to 50% of them are now Gen Y, right? So Gen Y, around my age, between 35 to 38. You've got a lot of young CEOs. Gundeep looked pretty young as well, just an example of himself as a millennial. And then you've got the Gen Z, which is yourself. Now, there's another generation that is about 10 years old right now called Generation Alpha. And I'm going to touch upon them a little bit later. But fundamentally, instead of differentiating them, they have certain trends amongst them, right? And the question you need to ask yourself is, how, as a Generation Z that's about to face the real world very soon, you're going to be involved in your careers, in your entrepreneurial ventures, you're going to be doing a lot of stuff in your life. How are you going to be building up that resilience and that tolerance to be able to deal with different generations, right? And the answer is not going to come from social media and a digital framework or a digital online existence, right? Now, this is an example of how the trends around us have fundamentally shaped the generations. For example, in my time, when I was as a millennial, the bike when I was a kid was everything for me, right? I used to be on my bike all the time. Possibly when Zs were around, they were looking at folding scooters. And now when you've got the younger kids, you've got things like the fidget spinner. But if you go way back in Rubik's Cubes, before that Frisbees, and things were different. But here's what I'm trying to get at here. The way we learn is based on instant gratification today, right? There's a reason why there is a higher number of college dropouts in places like North America today in comparison to before. Have you ever asked yourself why more and more people are confusing passion with plain laziness? Because they haven't truly grasped the difference between having a mission and understanding their why versus being drowned into social media with false affirmations, right? Now, one of the things that I really, really enjoy doing is actually highlighting the instant gratification aspect. In the digital world, we have something called the instant gratification syndrome. What is that? It means that today, if I'm arguing with you about something, you know, we're having an argument and we're talking about a particular fact. Oh, what's the capital of Cuba? What do you or I do in that conversation? The first thing one of us is going to say is, let's just Google it, right? Now, that's a really simple example. Take that one step further. You're in university. People are in university, they're studying. Now, what happened in my dad's time and what happens in my time? A professor told me to go and write a research paper. I hope I don't get in trouble for this because I just, I'm out of university and, I'm pretty sure that you can't go back and tell my professors, but I'm just going to confess, right? The professor used to tell me to write a research paper. What did I do? I used to go and Google the topic, right? I used to go and do a bit of research via Google based off the resources I find online. And then what am I doing? Whether I'm proud of it or not, the truth is I'm paraphrasing a lot of information I find online, right? I short circuit my way to building that research paper, right? And then voila, I put together a couple of paragraphs, I do a bit of research here and there, I put it together and I submit that as a research paper. And guess what? Universities have plagiarism checks, but they weren't all that good back in my time. I'm sure they're a lot better now, but then I submitted that research paper. Now compare that with the experience that my dad would have had, right? My dad is about 75 now, right? So imagine what would happen if his professor told him to write a research paper. He didn't have Google to zone in onto keywords to tell him the answers he was looking for immediately. So what did he have to do? He had to go and camp in the office, the university library. And he had to do that for 2 weeks, maybe sometimes, for 1 week, right? And what was he doing? He was going and picking up books from different shelves, and books didn't have an automated keyword search. So what did he have to do? He had to open up and actually go through the book, possibly not read it back to front, but he definitely had to go into a depth. And he had to go into the point where he had to read parts of the book that he thought made sense. Now, here's what's the difference. The difference is the time and the effort taken for him to build that model of research and what he puts into his research paper back then, right, versus what I put in is an exact example of instant gratification. I haven't worked as hard as my dad did back then. I didn't understand the width and the depth of the knowledge base that he did by reading those books. What I did was hit a couple of YouTube links, crashed little SlideShare looks, checked out a few social media articles, checked out Medium, and I did all these sort of things, right? So fundamentally, the underlying learning process has been impacted by the generational differences. Look at the way technology has impacted us. There's a huge amount of good, but there's also a huge amount of bad, unfortunately. And so we have to be very cognizant of that. And when you're in university, you may not be very cognizant of it. And that's fundamentally why emotional intelligence, for me, played a huge role when I was growing up. Because I wasn't the smartest kid in school, because I wasn't as talented, I wasn't the strongest, I wasn't the most eloquent, I spent a lot of time on my own. And when you spend a lot of time on your own, what happens? You develop a sense of observation, unlike other kids. Other kids are busy being popular, they're going to parties, they're acing their A's, they're getting a high on something or another in their life. When you're a loser, like I was, you don't have anything to look forward to. So what do? You spend a lot of time. I was there in the bleachers, at the field, watching people, observing people. Because people didn't want to be my friends, I developed another superpower. What was that superpower? It was the power of observation. And the power of observation leads you to developing a self-awareness at an accelerated rate, right? Nobody else wants to be your friend. So the biggest thing that you can do in your life is to be your own friend. I always say this at audiences that I go to. I said this on my second TEDx as well. It's when people don't believe in you that you need to believe in yourself the most, right? And so one of the people I really look up to is Muhammad Ali, right? Not just because of his boxing career, but because of I've been reading this saying almost every day of my life ever since, probably the last 8 years. I've been a huge fan of Muhammad Ali, but more than just his boxing career and what he achieved was the way he used to think, right? Champions aren't made in gyms. Champions are made from something they have deep inside of them, a desire, a dream, a vision. They have to have the skill and the will, but the will must be stronger than the skill. I love that part of the saying. Why? Because we live in a world that is obsessed over the skill, right? We live in a world where people gloat over skill, right? I'm not downplaying the value of skill set. I'm not downplaying the value of competency. But I certainly do feel that we live in a world where we're doused in the technological mindset with instant gratification, with social media affirmations, with everything that we are immersed in digitally, with the consumption of data hitting us every second, the amount of data we're consuming, whether it's whichever device you have, whether it's your MacBook, your iPhone, your iPad, whatever it is, right? But the way we live, and we claim to be connected, but the one person that we're not really connected to is ourselves, right? If you really think about it, how much effort does an institution, educational or vocational, or a workplace truly give importance to the self-development of an individual? Not just from a competency or skill point of view. Yeah, sure, programming heads will send their programming reportees to, boot camps for skills. Again, engineers will send people to engineering conferences, skills again, right? These are what we call hard skills. But what about the softer skills? What about the skills? And I hate that word. I hate how people call them soft skills, because the reality is soft skills are the hardest ones to learn. And soft skills are the ones that actually take you a lot further in your life. The intangible aspects of your personality, what I refer to as your uniqueness, YOUNIQUE, that uniqueness, which is suppressed from a very young age, unfortunately, by educational institutes many times. A lot of educational institutes have changed. I'm sure the University of Delhi has changed. I'm sure you guys are taking leaps and bounds and strides to actually develop not just the IQ, but the emotional intelligence of would-be leaders of the future. But the reality is it's not changing fast enough. There are still too many institutions around the world that clamor around skill-based success, right? How many A's you got, which university, Ivy League university you ended up going to, what your GPA was, where you ended up working, whether you got into McKinsey or you worked for some unknown firm, right? All of these things play a certain role, but they don't make up your entire success. They aren't the reason for your DNA to actually skyrocket in the future. They aren't a reason why you're memorable in the future. Nobody gives a shit that I did something in Harvard, right? Nobody cares that I did something in Forbes. Truly, the reality is it's just a title. Whether I call myself a CEO or a janitor, it doesn't matter. What really matters is how you made or remained memorable in your employer's mind, in your partner's mind, in your investor's mind, in your personal relationships, right? Now, this is where the fundamental discussion today is going to talk about. We live in an age of digitalization where hard skills are glorified and they're treated as the baseline for your success, right? The baseline for you to get a good job, baseline for you to get that promotion, baseline for you to set up your next entrepreneurial venture as the CTO, right? Because you've got a great idea technologically. We live in the age of tech, so almost 70-80% of all entrepreneurs are tech entrepreneurs today, right? And these are hard skills, functional skills, or the skills needed to finish a task. Now, here's what digitalization has numbed in us: the ability to build an interpersonal prowess, the ability to be a more effective storyteller, the ability to communicate and to create more content out there to differentiate yourself, right? As kids, when we're suppressed in an educational environment to be less creative and more focused on just pure academics, this is the outcome. We create employees who are unfortunately slave-minded, right? They are thinking at a level where they have to constantly chase someone else, another brand, another bank account, another car, another job title at a bigger place, at a more better sounding brand. Everything is a chase, right? But what they're not doing is understanding that this entire rat race and this digital lifestyle that we lead all of it has suppressed our internals, right? And we've kind of forgotten how to connect ourselves with ourselves. And these interpersonal skills are what made me into a storyteller. They're the reasons why I succeeded despite bad grades, despite not having privilege, despite not being like everyone else, despite having a stammer. Everything has been connected to that ability to be able to articulate myself and develop a self-awareness beyond the norm, right? Now, here's something. In 2020, 77% of employers said that soft skills are equal to hard skills, right? Now, get this, check this out. 16% of employers said that soft skills are more important than hard skills in 2020. I can tell you, I bet you that you can't guess how many employers have actually jumped into this bandwagon just in the span of the last 6 to 8 months, ever since we ended 2020, right? So ever since, actually it's been less than that, 3 months, right? Now, collectively, the same study, I can share the study with us after this talk. Collectively, 23% of employers globally in that same study are reporting that they feel that soft skills are more important than your hard skills, right? And then this is probably something I shouldn't say when I'm talking at the University of Delhi. And don't get me wrong, this is not an excuse for you to go to your professors and say, listen, GPAs don't impress employers, so screw it, I'm not going to study. I'm not saying that. Please don't do that because I'm going to get in trouble. But I just want you to put yourself in that frame of mind, right? Where there are some really good things that have happened in the digital age, and there's some things that are worrying. But I'm going to come back to the good things now. One of the things that's happened is because of social media, we're overloaded by information at all times. We're bombarded with information. But what does that mean? It also means that we're more aware. We're smarter consumers. We're more aware of what's going on around us and not around us too. We know sitting in India or sitting in KL or in Singapore, we know what's happening in Russia now, right? We know what's happening halfway across the world. But in that same framework, we also now realize that more and more companies, like for example, Google, Amazon, how many of you guys know that right now, officially as a company level, Google has just announced as of I think about 3.5, 4 weeks ago, they just announced that they no longer are going to be looking at CVs or your GPA, right? As far as hiring is concerned, as far as a hiring decision is concerned. Can you imagine that? One of the most lauded after companies to work for in the world, maybe not as lauded as it used to be because of that scandal that happened a couple of weeks ago with the employee getting fired. That was kind of unfortunate. I was disappointed with that too. But anyways, my point is, nonetheless, it's a brand that, it's been etched into history. Google is something that's memorable beyond anyone, anybody. There's hardly anybody who doesn't know what Google is, right? And a lot of people dream about working for that company. And then they end up working there, right? And they start to understand that everything that I'm saying on these set of slides is exactly the DNA of companies that are becoming the future empires of tomorrow. Like Amazon, like Google, these companies are slowly embodying a lot of the things that storytellers like myself are sharing with students like you, right? They're starting to embody the reality that a CV doesn't reflect as much as prowess and as weight as much as it used to in HR and human resources. It's starting to embody the fact that your GPA is not a direct reflection of anything more than just your IQ. There are so many different types of other quotients of intelligence, right? All of this comes from your self-awareness. It comes from your emotional intelligence. And that's why if you don't spend time developing your interpersonal skills, which includes storytelling, which includes building a brand on platforms like LinkedIn, which includes doing things that go out of your way that differentiate you, right? And if you spend your time fitting into that straight A, Ivy League obsessed culture, and you're not doing something different, and you're not doing it early enough in life, you're going to end up being a drop in the ocean. That's just a reality. And that's why I put this slide up there, because the truth is GPAs do not impress employers as much as they used to, right? They do impress. A 4.0 is a great thing. I'm not saying don't get one. Look, man, if you love it and you do it, do it. Go out for it. If your dream is Harvard, do it. But do it for the right reasons, right? Now, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I do want to highlight the 10 skills that I never found in a textbook. And one of my friends, Evan Carmichael, right? I don't know if you know him. He and I actually, we came up with this framework together. And we called it 10 skills you'll never find in a textbook. And I want to run through these skills with you because these is a sum total of what I've realized as an entrepreneur of 17 different ventures around the world, from investing in New York, from having worked in big companies to, running my own acceleration and investment firm, from, being invited to different stages around the world and speaking to so many different audiences. So I'm hoping this adds value to your journey earlier on in your career, just before you step into the hardcore reality of the world, right? Number one, work ethic, right? You have a dedication not just to being the best in your field. If you're an engineer, you want to be the best engineer. You're a lawyer, you want to be the best lawyer you possibly can. But a work ethic also comes down to personally developing yourself, right? There's one aspect of your life and your job that has to do with your hard skills. I talked about it earlier, your hard skills. For example, if I'm a lawyer, of course, my ability as a lawyer comes from my law degree. It comes from my training as a lawyer. That's true. That's one side of it. But my self-awareness and my personal development as an all-round personality, my ability to become a more effective storyteller, my ability to become more eloquent, more diligent, more focused, more people-oriented, that would also allow me to add to my work ethic, right? And that would in turn add to my career. Your career is not just your functional hard skills, it is also, unfortunately, what they call the soft skills, which I think are the most important aspects of that, right? Number two, dependability. The other day, I think this was about a month ago, I hired this intern, and she joined me like probably less than that, about 3 weeks ago. She joined me, right? And in the last 3 weeks, she's taken probably about 6 MCs, right? She's like taken 6 MCs, and there are different reasons as to why she can't make it to the office and stuff. Look, she's an intern, I understand. And some of her MCs and some of her reasons for not coming to the office were justified. But some of the other times I kind of felt like, even though I didn't say anything to her, I did feel like, the threshold and the ability to last and to go that extra mile is something that is becoming of a limiting reserve as we go further and further into generations, right? I see a higher level of thresholds in my parents' time and in my sister's time, who's a good 9-10 years older than I am, right? I see a higher level of threshold amongst them to sustain and to survive and to drive their life in comparison to me. And similarly, I see it now in the younger generations where their threshold to be able to take things and to be dependable has lessened over time, right? I'm not stereotyping. I'm talking about real life experiences I've had working with different generational segments in the market. And this has nothing to do with because they're Gen Z. This has more to do with the world we live in, which is generation connected. Again, going back to digital, right? Dependability and the ability to feel like you're accountable. Your employers need to feel like they can trust you and that you'll be there, not just when the going's good, but when it's also really tough, right? Number 3, your attitude. Like I always say this, right? Your attitude, it determines your altitude, right? I've met people who are the most talented people. I've met guys who are the smartest people in the room. I know that, I grew up with a guy who actually worked on the Hubble telescope, right? And he ended up going to Stanford, Harvard, name it, right? Smartest guy in the room, used to talk to him all the time. Amazing guy. We grew up together, childhood friends, and just probably one of the most worst attitudes I've ever seen in my life, right? I mean, his attitude to life and to people in general, his social behavior was just one of the worst attitudes I've ever seen. He was amazingly smart, right? So, but, he just didn't have the right attitude. And so he ended up going from job to job, despite, feeling like he carried that intellect with him, which he thought would justify everything. His straight A's, his Ivy League education, his ability, his abilities, his projects with NASA, the Hubble telescope, all of that, right? He probably was under the impression that, everything else doesn't really matter. I'm it. I don't really need to make an effort. People need to make an effort towards me because I'm who I am. And that's exactly what this mentality and this existence of a social media profile online has done to us, right? I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but attitude is directly related to what we call a social media identity disorder, right? A lot of people, for example, I'm sure some of you are really active on TikTok, right? You might have 1 million followers on TikTok. Here's what's happening. I coach a lot of Gen Zs and Gen Ys, right? And I see a lot of people, they blur the boundaries between their profile online with who they really are offline, right? And what they do is they spend a lot of time differentiating themselves online, right? But they're not putting in that same hustle and that same work offline, right? They're not, it's not a commensurate amount of effort. And again, it comes back to one thing that I've been talking about throughout this whole presentation, self-awareness, right? If you've got that awareness, you'll understand that, hey, here I am portraying this amazing LinkedIn profile with all these titles and all these projects. Here I am putting out this amazing TikTok videos where I'm standing next to a Lamborghini or a Porsche and my life looks so amazing. I'm at this resort, you know, and then there your friends are looking at your life going, wow, it's amazing, man. This person has an amazing life, right? But what they don't understand is it is an illusion, right? It's an illusion. And that illusion becomes a psychological truth. You actually, the person who's doing that, they start to believe their own lie. That's, again, another dark side of digitalization that we live in today, right? Not understanding that your attitude is directly related, not just to your experiences in reality, but also with your experiences and your behavior online, digitally, right? So attitude really determines a lot of the chances of your success from an employment point of view, in terms of your future, your relationships, your marriage, everything, right? And of course, self-awareness. Self-awareness, I think, is a very vast subject. But, you know, fundamentally, for me, it's just one sentence. It's the honest perception of what reflects in the mirror, right? You know, when I wake up in the morning, you know, just before I remember my first day, you know, before I got into the interview for Google, I put on a suit, like, you know, not like a blazer like this, but like a full-on suit. And I walked in, and it was like a group interview. And before I could just get, you know, before I even could sit down, you know, in the office, you know, the would-be interviewer told me to get out. He just said, you know, can you just leave? And he didn't even tell me. He didn't say good morning. He just said, can you just leave, right? And I was shocked, right? You know, and so, okay, he's like, you know, just wait outside. So I waited outside 10, 15 minutes. I was waiting outside. And I was like sitting there and waiting to hear back, because I started freaking out. I started freaking out, thinking about, okay, you know, what was it? Was I late? Did I say something? Did I do? No, you know, none of it. I was just going through all of that. Finally, the interviewer came out and he sat down next to me and he goes, do you know why I asked you to get out? And I said, no, right? And he said, I'm just going to say one thing. Observe, don't look, right? Then he switched it around the other way too. Let me put it another way for you. Look, but learn to observe, right? And I still didn't get it. And he goes, let me give you a hint. You walked into that room. What did you see everybody else wearing? So I was like, yeah, pair of jeans, maybe a blazer, like a coat with, you know, no tie, just a pair of jeans or a top, or, you know. He's like, yeah, okay. And so what did you walk in wearing? And I said I was wearing a full-on suit. And he goes, you know, for other companies, that wouldn't have mattered. But here at Google, this matters. You know why? Because it shows that you have a stunningly low amount of self-awareness. You have no idea about how to poise yourself and how to maneuver yourself into an environment and assimilate yourself into an environment. Why did you show up to an interview when you know the culture of this company and you show up in a suit? And I was like, well, I thought that was my choice. And he goes, I'm sorry, it isn't. When you're working with partners, when you're working with someone else aside from yourself, it is not just about your choice. It isn't about what you like and what you don't like. It is about a we mentality, not just a me mentality. And that is self-awareness, an honest perception of what reflects in the mirror. So I wake up every morning and I do that now. You know, if I know that I'm going to do something, I look at myself in the mirror and I start talking to myself and I walk myself through that conversation. What am I going to do? Why am I going to do it? That's the most important question, right? Number 5, self-confidence. Now, self-confidence, believe it or not, is a complete byproduct of your self-awareness. The more self-aware you are and the more real you are with yourself and the more articulate you are with your relationships and your ability to build confidence in others, inspire others, not just your university mates right now in university, but in the future, your bosses, your potential investors, your partners, anything, right? You are going to be able to build that self-confidence in yourself at a startlingly fast rate, because you will know yourself before you know others. So you're going to trust in your own effort, right? And you do not rely on outside affirmation for that. And I can tell you right now, I don't know any of you right now in this class. I don't have a friendship with any of you yet. I don't know you very well, but I do know for a fact that if you think about it, like just, stop for a moment and think about it. How often have you been 100% confident in just yourself without the need of an outside source, whether it's a lecturer, whether it's your parents, whether it's your boyfriend, your girlfriend, anything, right? How often have you been truly, fully resolute and confident in your ability to deliver something, right? If you think about it, you'll be surprised how many times you second guess yourself. Number 6, communication, which is what I call storytelling, right? Storytelling is something that is part of our DNA. Since the Stone Age, cavemen and cavewomen were drawing things on walls to make sense of the world around them. And ever since then, storytelling has never left us. Believe it or not, it's been proven scientifically, stories are 22 times more memorable than straight facts, right? If people are going to be talking to you about, for example, the weather, if they craft a story around the weather and experience they had with it versus just going and telling you a straight fact about the weather, trust me, there's a higher chance you're going to remember that story about the weather as opposed to them just going up and saying, yeah, it's pretty hot today, right? And that's exactly why it's so important. I can't tell you the number of times I've met CEOs in the last probably about 6-7 years that are of Fortune 500 companies, and they sit across the table and they tell me, when I tell them that I'm a brand storyteller, 5 years ago, I had one particular memory, I still remember this. I was sitting across a Fortune 500 CEO, and we were talking about brand storytelling and about how brand storytelling can add to his bottom line for a particular subsidiary, a particular company they owned. And he looked at me straight in the eyes and he said, AJ, I don't have time for this fluff. Storytelling is fluff. It doesn't really add anything to the bottom line. I don't see a connection with revenue. You know what? You're wasting my time, right? And look at how karma plays such a role and how things turn around. About 4.5 years later, on LinkedIn, this person was following my content and then ended up messaging me, right? They ended up messaging me and asking me, hey, listen, AJ, I want you to come in. I want you to sit down with my team and tell them how I can craft an actual persona around storytelling for this organization. How can I further humanize and how can I further communicate a way to keep my teams internally moving forward, as well as getting my customers really excited about me, right? And I told him one thing. I said, well, 4.5 years ago, you seemed to tell me it was a waste of time. And he just told me straight, bluntly there on LinkedIn DM, I was wrong, right? So if a Fortune 500 CEO can understand this and see this now, then imagine the amount of success that you're going to have if you start developing those communication skills right now as students, right? I would strongly recommend you follow marketers, you follow storytellers, you follow people like Gary Vee. You understand a lot of what they do has nothing to do with their hard skills, but again, their self-awareness and their soft skills, which comes down to effective communication as well, right? Multitasking. Now, yes, there's an age-old adage of how women are better multitaskers than men and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we know that. But, the reality is it's not true, right? It's not true. There's no particular gender that's better at multitasking or not. It is a product of you training yourself and a product of you understanding time management. Like Gundeep was talking about earlier, about his Microsoft, working desk where he had the under-the-table treadmill. That was an amazing testament to multitasking. That's great, right? And things like that, growth hacks like that are really, really important. And so I really think that, Gundeep really covered this point. Understanding how to become more effective and more productive in a given time to start multitasking is very important for your career and for your future, right? Teamwork, very easy. Sounds very simple, right? But if you really think about it, you haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg about what real world industry teamwork is about. Let me tell you why. Right now, when you're in university, there's about 50% chance where you're going to get a chance to work with people you like, right? When you're having a group activity in your class, when you're doing your finals or you're doing something else, it's either individual as an assignment for yourself, or you get a chance to pick your group and sometimes the lecturer will, randomize those groups to make you work with people that you're not very comfortable with or you're not very friendly with. But most of the time, you still have the chance of working with people that are familiar to you because you're still one class, right? Here's what happens in the real world. In the real world, when you go into a job, right, it doesn't matter whether you're working at Google or you're working in Timbuktu. It doesn't matter, right? Whenever you go to a real job and you're working for any company, you don't have the possibility and the opportunity and the preference to choose who you're going to work with on this particular project or this particular job or who's in your team, right? It doesn't work that way. Not at least until you get to a senior role where you can build your own team. But until then, when you get into that baseline of your career, you're going to have to work with people and you're going to have to put the definition of teamwork to the limit as far as testing yourself, because you're going to work with a lot of people that you just don't get along with. That's real teamwork. Real teamwork isn't when you work with something that's comfortable. Real teamwork is when you can make it with a variety of different people within the same group and you can still make it happen. Collaboration and moving forward effectively despite the differences. Number 9, adaptability, right? I think this is pretty self-explained. Now, people say, McKinsey's report, I think about nearly 10 years ago said, 9 out of 10 startups fail. Why? Let's ask ourselves why. Why do 9 out of 10 startups fail in the world? Now, I can bet you right now in this class right now, when people who are attending this call right now, 50% of you might be thinking about being an entrepreneur. Now, you hear stats like that, 9 out of 10 startups fail, that really disheartens you. But don't be disheartened, because I went in and I dug deeper and I found out in that same McKinsey report, 9 out of 10 startups fail, not because it wasn't a good idea, right? Not because they didn't have a solid business plan, but because they didn't understand the value of pivoting and adapting to the market, right? When you have an idea and you assume that that's the final version of what you're going to do, that's your biggest mistake. No idea that comes into your mind from the first instance is ever going to be the final version of itself. It is going to evolve, and that is by very nature what an entrepreneur is. And it's pretty similar to what a hacker is, actually. A hacker and an entrepreneur both have prototypical minds because they want to prototype. They want to go in, then go out. They want to go in and they want to go out. And they understand that they need to learn not based off their gut opinion or their own ego, but they need to learn what the market really wants out of that idea, right? And that comes from adaptability. So if any of you listening into this, you want to be an entrepreneur, right? Like for sure, like for real, like you don't want to go down that route of ending up working with some, huge corporate, but you actually want to go out and become your own entrepreneur. You want to set up the next Facebook, the next Uber, the next Airbnb, whatever you want to do, right? If you are, then adaptability has to be your DNA. It doesn't mean that you stop at the very first instance of your own idea. You have to adapt and you have to pivot. And sometimes that adaptability is painful, but it's part of that journey. So you should embrace it. And this is a slide to sort of remind myself. I use this slide to remind myself. Right? It used to be a song, like YOLO was a song a long time ago. I don't know if you guys remember it was a song, right? But that's not the reason why I put it up here, right? I put it up here because this is what that interview session that went wrong. This is exactly what he said to me, the interviewer. Don't just look, observe. Right. And when I started researching into that, I found all these different other, pseudonyms about it. Like, don't just swallow, taste. Don't just sleep, dream. Don't just think, feel, and don't just exist, live. And it's easier said than done, right? These things might sound cliche on a slide to you, but if you really think about it and sit back and you look at your career, you look at what you're doing right now in this very moment, right? What you're going to be doing in the next 5 years, where you think you're heading, if you really think about it, you'll realize that a lot of us are not truly living our lives. We're merely existing. And a lot of that, unfortunately, has to do with the numbing effect that the digital world has had on us, with the amount of information we consume, with the distraction that we do. Do you know right now, in the US right now, in the United States, 40% of people in urban capital cities spend more time with a device than they do with people. So let that sink in. There are 40% of urban populations in capital cities in the US spend more time with a device than they do with people. Do you see something wrong with that? You get what I mean? There's something very, very wrong with that. And so it is up to your generation. It is up to you for you to recognize the light and the dark in this new digital age that we're progressing in. I found out that I was meant to be your brand online. You don't have to wait for a cool company that you can call yourself a part of. You don't have to wait for a ton of money. You don't have to wait for a crutch or a title, being associated with something that makes you look cool. The only brand that you really need is you, right? And people will appreciate you, employers, partners, relationships, whatever. People will unleash your innate self into everything, right? And you lose the fear of being able to speak out and be who you really want to be, right? And that means you should build that brand. I don't know if you guys follow Gary Vee. I follow Gary. I really like the guy. I think he speaks a lot of truth and a lot of sense. He talks about documentation versus creation. A lot of people on social media try to create something. They like to create things to make themselves look more than they are. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not a brand. What I'm talking about is documentation. The simplest things that you do on a daily basis can uncover a massive amount of learning, not just for yourself, but believe it or not, someone else out there would also really appreciate what you've learned on that day. And if you overcome that shell that you're in right now, where you've got a fear of stepping out of that shell, and if you start to learn how to be proud and be okay with sharing that professionally as well as personally, you're going to start seeing a lot of things in your life falling into place, right? One of the recommendations I have strongly for you, if you're not on LinkedIn, I definitely recommend that you do get on LinkedIn. And if you're not active on LinkedIn, I'd recommend that you do get active. And by active, I don't mean just writing a post. I mean, start actively looking at building relationships with connections. Start actively putting out thought leadership and stories from your own life that reflected something that you learned from. People aren't looking for you to say something logical. Even customers of any brand are not looking for businesses and marketing to make them think. They're looking for businesses and marketing to give them something to feel now. We live in that age. No longer does advertising work on the basis of logic. It now works on the basis of emotion, right? People want to be part of something, and that's what brand loyalty is all about. So build your brand and don't have to wait for a company, a bank account, or a material gain for you to understand that you already are a brand. You just need to start going out there and building a content library. And I recommend you do that on LinkedIn, but if you feel like you want to do it elsewhere, on medium.com, on on TikTok, on Instagram, wherever you want to do it, but make sure you do it, right? Number two, something that I love, and this is what Captain America said in the movie. One of my favorite movies is Captain America, and he says actually before he becomes a super soldier, he becomes this amazing super soldier. He can run faster than cars, and he's super strong. Before that, this little scrawny guy kind of reminded me of myself back then. I was a small little dude, and despite everything that was happening around him, he turned around and told his colleagues in the army, fight for something bigger than yourself. Because your size and your stature and everything, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What really matters is, have you dedicated yourself to something more than just yourself? Like I was told earlier in my career, it isn't about me, it's about we. And are you truly embracing that mindset? Because when you do, that's when you end up getting leaders like Sundar Pichai. That's when you end up getting leaders like Gary Vee. That's when you end up getting leaders like Indra Nooyi, right? Because they understand this. They live this. It's part of their DNA. They fight for something bigger than themselves every single day, right? And of course, lead by example. As a kid, I'm an 80s kid, right? So, I grew up a millennial. So one of the things that I grew up with was Transformers. And somebody I really looked up to when I was a kid was Optimus Prime. He had this voice, this amazing voice. But more than that, he was always willing to make the hard decisions, even though he was outnumbered, outgunned in every which way, right? But he still led by example. And that's really important. lead by example, because believe it or not, people will forget a lot of things. People will forget possibly your name after 10 years. They'll forget where you were from, where they met you. They'll forget a lot of things. But the one thing they'll never forget is how you made them feel. Remember that, because if you lead by example, you will have an impact on people's lives, right? And finally, before I end, when I was a story about my, you know, funny thing, I went through a phase of arrogance. So after I had my growth spurt when I was 16, my life changed. I got bigger, stronger. And from 16 to about about 23, 24, actually, I went on this, you know, this shock, you know, and I forgot what it really meant to be me, right? And it was until a certain point where, you know, I got obsessed with material gain, with money. And I was making, my dad sat me down one day and he told me, son, you've changed, you know? And I asked him how I've changed. And he said, you know, you're just not the same kid that I used to know. You know, you've changed. You know, you used to value certain things. You don't value them anymore. You don't have time for them. You're more interested in cars and girls and you know and parties and everything else. And you know, I was about 25, 26, and you know what I said to my father is my biggest regret. If I could go back in time, I would go back in time and I would change that. I actually told my dad indirectly that, you know, he's just jealous because I'm making more money in the beginning of my career than I am compared to him at the end of his own career. And you know, he was so hurt, but he actually got up and he didn't say anything to me. He just got up and he left, just walked away, right? And I wish I could go back and change that, because the truth is, I look back now and I realize that I was just a really, really arrogant person, and I had let a lot of the success and money go to my head. And it was not until my sister said something to me that really changed my life. She actually told me this because she had read it somewhere, but it stuck with me and I couldn't sleep for 3 days after that. She said, leave people better than how you found them. Do you leave people better than how you found them? And I laughed in her face. I just laughed. I was really awkward. You know, I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, it doesn't, you know, this stuff is, it's crap, right? It doesn't matter to me. And for some reason, it got into my psyche and I couldn't sleep for 3 days. I couldn't eat properly. I couldn't sleep. It just kept on biting at me inside, kept biting at me. And I realized something. It was because the friends and the life I had built in my mid-20s was not a life of AJ. It was a life of someone that AJ wanted to be, but it wasn't truly who he was. And I had fooled myself into believing that I wanted all these things that people defined as success, but that wasn't really success. I wasn't leaving anybody with value. I wasn't leaving anybody with better than how I found them, you know? So that was a turning point in my life, and I changed at that point. So leaving people better than how I found them is the reason why I became a storyteller. And beyond the ability to go to several places around the world, having been on TEDx, you know, being part of Forbes, doing whatever, you know, having invested in, you know, being part of lots of different companies around the world, all of these things are great and they're really fun. It's good to do. But the truth of the matter is, fundamentally, at the end of the day, the only reason I really became a storyteller so that I could give other people hope, right? Hope that when they see me, they understand that if someone who was such a loser, who didn't have any privilege, who didn't go to Harvard, who didn't do all these things, if he could do it, then there's no reason why I can't. And that's when I want you to get up and look at yourself in the mirror, because I want you to see you for who you are, unique, YOUNIQUE, right? And don't let the digital world around you, social media, you know, everything around you, tell you anything otherwise. You need to spend an equal amount of time seeing that out, your emotional intelligence with your academic intelligence. So yeah, that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you so much, sir. It was indeed a very interesting session, and you are really a source of inspiration for all of us. Like, it was one of the best sessions I have attended. And now I would like to request the participants to drop down their queries in the chat box if they have one. So we have the first query. Sir, we wanted to know that what is your most important core value?
Authenticity. Authenticity. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Like, people will tell you that you can't do this. people will tell you, this is the reality of the world. I'm sorry to break this. I know I'm supposed to be motivational, but I need to be real with you as well. There's no use somebody coming and telling you motivational stuff when the real world isn't such a pretty, amazing, flowery place. The truth is, the real world is tough, right? People are going to spit in your face. People are going to say things to you that you don't like. You're going to work with people that you don't like. That shouldn't stop you. They're going to tell you when they look at you, and when you say that you want to do something, they're going to look at you and you're going to say, but you're just one person. I want you to smile back at them and tell them, now we're two. Because that's how everything in the world started. One person decided to take action. And then from there, they were not afraid to be who they really were. Look at Abraham Lincoln's story. Look at Gandhi's story. Look at everybody we look up to. Look at the people we respect. You'll see that the turning point of their life is when they lose the fear to not be afraid to show the world who they really are without any layers. They just want to be who they are. So be authentic. Don't be afraid of disbelief. Don't be afraid of the naysayers. Don't be afraid of people around you who tell you that you can't do it. In time, they'll come to respect you because you have overcome your fear and they're still holding on to it.
Thank you so much, sir. So as there are no more queries, we would end the query session here and there.
Thank you very much. Okay, guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I wish you the best of luck. Thank you very much for having me.
Moving ahead now, I'd like to invite our co-convener, Soumya ma'am, to present the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry, there's an echo. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very informative sessions that we had today. Team CyberCell extends its heartiest gratitude to our speakers, Mr. Tamal Bandyopadhyay, Dr. A.J. Minai, and Mr. Gundeep Bindra for giving a really insightful session. I'm sure it must have been a very enlightening session for all of our students. On behalf of the entire CyberCell team, I would like to express our heartiest gratitude to our respected Principal Ma'am, Professor Savita Roy, and Vice Principal Ma'am, Dr. Sarita Nanda, for their support and encouragement. We are also grateful to our convener, Mrs. Sushma Arora Ma'am, and co-convener, Ms. Soumya Ma'am, for guiding us in organizing such enriching, relevant sessions. I would like to thank our wonderful participants for their due cooperation and for staying with us till the very end. And last but not the least, I would really like to thank our union of CyberCell, who have been working tirelessly this entire last month, just organizing this whole session for you. We look forward to having more such sessions with you and to learn from you. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. You have always been a source of motivation and inspiration for all of us. Thank you so much for being a strong pillar for the cell. Now I request the participants to switch on their camera for a group photograph. With this, we come to the end of the session. I guess it's done. Thank you so much for being here with us. So, you may start leaving the meeting now. See you in the future events of ENCRYPT'21 and CyberCell. Thank you so much for joining.